Chapter 754. The Great Desolate Sword Chi Technique seemed to have a good name. But in reality, it was only a top-grade yellow class technique that could be cultivated to the early stages of the Chi transformation stage. For Chu Mu, this level of technique was too simple. He only needed to look at it once to completely understand its mysteries. After spending some time to study it, Chu Mu knew how to cultivate it. He also used 2 days to make improvements to the Great Desolate Sword Chi technique, allowing him to cultivate it to the peak of the Chi transformation stage. Chu Mu estimated that he would need some time to cultivate to the peak of the Chi transformation stage. This was because he planned to cultivate slowly and steadily to strengthen his foundation. Every day, he would take out 4 hours to cultivate the Great Desolate Sword Chi technique. Then he would cultivate his sword techniques and control of his strength. After that, he would study seals. Both the defensive and counterattack seals had reached the Great Grandmaster level. It would be very difficult to improve in a short period of time. Therefore, Chu Mu began to study the offensive seals. Among the seals that he had obtained, most of them were offensive, defensive, and counterattack. There were fewer binding and support type. The foundations of the seals were similar. Therefore, in just a few days, Chu Mu had reached the beginner level of the offensive seals. In the blink of an eye, Chu Mu had already been in Heaven Wasteland domain for a month. His sword chi cultivation had also reached the 10th stage of the sword chi boundary. Furthermore, the desolate sword chi was extremely pure. His foundation was so stable that it was shocking. If other people knew of his cultivation speed, he would definitely become the focus of attention. But Chu Mu's consciousness was extremely strong. He easily concealed the fluctuations of his sword chi. Even Nalan he could not sense it in the slightest. In the 20 days that he had stayed in this little courtyard in the desolate city, Chu Mu did not go out at all. Today, Chu Mu walked out of his room to take a stroll outside. He pondered about the possibility of breaking the Wu blood curse. As he walked to the back courtyard. He saw a figure sitting coldly on a chair. Chu Mu recognized at a glance that it was Nalan Fenghua. The maid Xiao Huan was not present. Miss Nalan seems to have something on her mind. Chu Mu walked over and sat down across from Nalan Fenghua. Brother Chu, please don't laugh at me for worrying about the store, Nalan Fenghua said with a faint smile. Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can give you some suggestions, Chu Mu said. Nalan Fenghua didn't think that Chu Mu could help, but she remembered Nalan He's evaluation of Chu Mu. She also needed to vent the frustration in her heart. After pondering for a while, she said it. Chu Mu understood the cause and effect of the matter through Nalan Fenghua's narration. Nalan Fenghua was the 3rd miss of the Nalan clan, and the Nalan clan was one of the 2 great clans in the Wildfire City, an intermediate city. They mainly dealt in the pill business. Because of some reasons, she left her clan and came to Wildfire City to manage a pill store here. This pill store naturally belonged to the Nalan clan, but it was far from Wildfire City. In addition to the competition from the Heavenly Pill Pavilion in Wildfire City, the business of the pill store was becoming increasingly difficult. Although Nalan Fenghua didn't say it clearly, Chu Mu could tell from her words that if the business here failed and the store closed, she would have to return to the Nalan clan. Chu Mu's mind raced and he roughly understood. There must be some reason why Nalan Fenghua left the Nalan clan and came to Wildfire City to manage a declining pill store. If she failed, she would have to return to the Nalan clan and accept some arrangement that she wasn't willing to accept. The Nalan clan's pill store in Wildfire City was called Little Pill Pavilion. It didn't occupy a large area and its business was very ordinary to begin with. Now, its sales had fallen even further. If this continued, it would close down in less than 3 months. 3 months was actually a very short period of time. Could pass in a flash. Nalan Fenghua was a gentle and graceful person, but her heart was very unyielding. If she didn't want to do something, she would definitely not do it. Therefore, she didn't want to return to her clan as a loser. She wanted to return as a winner. How does Miss Nayland plan to deal with this matter? Chu Mu asked casually. Little Pill Pavilion is just our clan's experiment in Wildfire City. It's just a small business. The pills it sells are of low level and average quality. The Heavenly Pill Pavilion has been rooted in Wildfire City for decades. Unless we can launch higher quality pills, we won't be able to snatch the market from the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, Nayland Fenghua said. Indeed, the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had been rooted in Wildfire City for decades. The market was basically theirs. It was very difficult to snatch a part of the market from them, especially the Little Pill Pavilion. It was just an experiment by the Nayland clan to develop Wildfire City. Without any real investment, it was even more difficult. Chu Mu thought that it might not be Nayland Fenghua's choice to come here. At this time, the maid Xiao Huan also came. She glared at Chu Mu and then said to Nayland Fenghua, Miss, Master Yuan Jiang is here. He's waiting in the hall. Brother Chu, I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. Nayland Fenghua immediately stood up and bowed to Chu Mu. Then, she turned around and left. If Miss Nayland needs me, you don't have to be polite, Chu Mu said. Then, he added, actually, I'm an alchemist. Nayland Fenghua paused and didn't say anything. Chu Mu sat alone in the backyard, looking at the sky and thinking about his own problem. Master Yuan Jiang was an alchemist. He looked like he was in his 30s. His cheeks were sunken, his chin was sharp, and he had a small beard like a goatee. His eyes narrowed and shone brightly. They fell on Nayland Fenghua's face from top to bottom, across her neck, towering breasts, waist, legs, and feet. Then, he slowly moved his gaze from bottom to top again. He looked at her unscrupulously with a hint of possessiveness, which made Nayland Fenghua frown. She was somewhat displeased. Miss Nayland, you're really as beautiful as your name suggests. Yuan Jiang stroked his goatee and smiled. His face was wretched. He didn't look like a master at all. Instead, he looked more like a lecher. Master, you flatter me. Even though she felt disgusted, as if she had eaten a fly, Nayland Fenghua had long understood Yuan Jiang's temperament. She endured the discomfort and did everything for her own destiny. I wonder if Grandmaster is willing to become a professional alchemist of the small pill house? Although the Little Pill Pavilion is small with me, it won't be difficult to expand it. Yuan Jiang stared at Nayland Fenghua and said confidently, however, I have a few conditions. I'll only be willing to become a professional alchemist of the Little Pill Pavilion if you fulfill them one by one. Master, please speak, Nayland Fenghua said. The first condition is that I want 70% of the ownership of the Little Pill Pavilion. As soon as Yuan Jiang said that, Nayland Fenghua, Xiao Huan, and Nayland He's expressions changed drastically. 70% ownership of the Little Pill Pavilion was Yuan Jiang's property. Nayland Fenghua's expression returned to normal. She didn't refute and looked at Yuan Jiang. What are the other conditions? The second condition is that I'm 36 years old this year and still unmarried. I admire Miss Nayland's beauty very much. I don't know if Miss Nayland is willing to give me a chance. Yuan Jiang sat up straight and put on a pose that he thought was the best. We'll work together to develop the Little Pill Pavilion and take over the pill market in the border cities. Then we'll expand to other cities. When he got to the point where he was excited, Yuan Jiang's words flowed like a river. He waved his hands as if he was talking about the world and was in high spirit. It seemed that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had been defeated and disbanded by the Little Pill Pavilion, and the Little Pill Pavilion had taken over the pill market in the border cities. Furthermore, the Little Pill Pavilion was expanding to other cities, taking over one market after another, and eventually dominating the Heaven Wasteland domain. Xiao Huan's mouth was wide open, and she stared at Master Yuan Jiang in shock. Nayland Fenghua frowned, and the disgust in her heart grew stronger. Actually, calling this Yuan Jiang a master was just a form of flattery. His alchemy skills had yet to reach the level of a true master. However, he seemed to be very confident in himself. He was so confident that he became arrogant. Yuan Jiang said a lot of things and then sat down again. He seemed to be very satisfied with his speech. The prospects that Master said are very good, but Master's conditions are a little harsh, which makes it difficult for me, Naylan Fenghua said. It doesn't matter. Miss Naylan has 3 days to think about it. If you can't give me a clear answer after 3 days, then I'm sorry, but I'll accept the invitation of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, Yuan Jiang said. Okay, let me think about it for 3 days. Naylan Fenghua nodded. Yuan Jiang left, and only Naylan Fenghua, Naylan He, and Xiao Huan were left in the hall. Miss, why is this person like this? Xiao Huan began to mumble again. Miss, this person can't be used, Naylan He said. I know. Naylan Fenghua had a headache. Although Yuan Jiang was not a master, he was indeed an alchemist. If he was in charge of the Little Pill Pavilion, it was very likely that the Little Pill Pavilion's current predicament could be delayed and even slowly developed. The problem was his character. No matter which condition it was, Naylan Fenghua couldn't agree to it. Suddenly, Naylan Fenghua thought of Chu Mu. When he left just now, Chu Mu's last sentence was, "Actually, I'm an alchemist." Naylan Fenghua didn't believe it in her heart, but she didn't know why she had an impulse to find Chu Mu. For a time, Naylan Fenghua didn't have any way. She got up, walked out of the hall, and went to the backyard. The maid, Xiao Huan, also followed. When she found out that the young miss was actually looking for that freeloader and had placed her hopes on him, she was instantly stupefied. Miss, that guy is definitely lying. If he really is an alchemist, would he still need to cheat us out of food and drink? Xiao Huan asked. This question was extremely sharp. Naylan Fenghua didn't answer. She didn't know what kind of mentality she had now. Was she trying to make a Hail Mary effort? Or was it just because she was annoyed and wanted to find someone to chat with? Chapter 755. Naylan Fenghua found Chu Mu. After a simple chat, coupled with the maid Xiao Huan's muttering, Chu Mu quickly figured out the ins and outs. Miss Naylan, help me prepare an alchemy furnace and some common medicinal herbs. The more complete the better. Chu Mu smiled and said. Ah. Naylan Fenghua was shocked, and so was the maid Xiao Huan. Listening to Chu Mu's words, it seemed that he really knew how to refine pills and was really an alchemist. If you are really an alchemist, why don't you even have an alchemy furnace? The maid Xiao Huan was surprised and asked the question in her heart. There is a special alchemy room in the small elixir house. Naylan Fenghua said, if Brother Chu wants to refine pills, you can go to the small elixir house with me. Chu Mu's words gave Naylan Fenghua a glimmer of hope in her heart. A desperate hope, a little light in the darkness, swaying like a candle flame. Well, it's getting late. I'll go tomorrow morning. Chu Mu glanced at the sky and said. Then tomorrow morning, I'll come to pick up Brother Chu. Naylan Fenghua smiled and got up to leave. Unknowingly, the frustration in her heart reduced a lot and she felt more comfortable. Miss, do you really believe that guy is an alchemist? On the way, Xiao Huan didn't give up. I don't know. Naylan Fenghua replied. That guy doesn't look like an alchemist at all. If he really is an alchemist, why doesn't he even have an alchemy furnace and ask Miss to prepare it? If he really is an alchemist, as long as he refines some pills, he can live very well. Why does he stay here to eat and drink? If he is an alchemist, why doesn't he have any cultivation at all? In the end, he even asked Miss for a cultivation method. Xiao Huan made several assumptions in a row. Whether he is an alchemist or not, won't we know tomorrow? Naylan Fenghua said. Chu Mu closed the door and casually set up some seals. Then, he sat cross-legged on the bed. His strong spiritual will kept him in a state of high spirit at all times. Even if he didn't sleep for 10 days and 10 nights, he wouldn't feel sleepy. Therefore, when others were sleeping, Chu Mu used it to cultivate. At this moment, a piece of jade appeared in his hand. This piece of jade was one of the rewards that Chu Mu and Zhen Tian's team members had obtained after opening one of the tombs in the primordial stone tomb. The jade was a precious treasure of inheritance, and the contents of the inheritance were pills. This was also the reason why Chu Mu dared to say that he was an alchemist. Originally, he didn't intend to use it himself, but looking at the current situation, it seemed that it wasn't bad for him to use it. Immediately, a large amount of information flooded into Chu Mu's mind like a torrent. All kinds of basic knowledge of alchemy, techniques, and so on entered his mind. The Tao of Sword was an independent and complete Tao. The Tao of Seals was an independent and complete Tao as well. The Tao of Sword Forging was an independent and complete Tao as well. As for the Tao of Alchemy, it was an independent and complete Tao. Since it was an independent and complete Tao, there were all kinds of foundations, all kinds of advancements, all kinds of knowledge, all kinds of techniques, all kinds of classifications, and so on. After a full hour, Chu Mu finally finished accepting the inheritance. He only felt that his brain was swollen, as if a large stone had been stuffed into it. After meditating for a while, he finally got rid of the swollen feeling in his head. The precious treasure of inheritance was scrapped because of the end of the inheritance. After Chu Mu destroyed the shattered precious treasure of inheritance, he closed his eyes and began to read the various information that flooded into his mind. He started with the most basic knowledge of alchemy. That was theoretical knowledge, just like the preface of a book. After reading it, he had a shallow understanding of the Tao of alchemy. After that, he read the most basic knowledge of alchemy and various introductions about alchemy. First was the classification of alchemy. Starting from the lowest level, it was the first, second, and 10th level. The first, second, and third level alchemy was suitable for sword chi stage swordsmen. The fourth, fifth, and sixth level alchemy was suitable for chi transformation stage swordsmen. The 7th, 8th, and 9th level alchemy was suitable for Chi C stage swordsmen. As for the 10th level alchemy, it was suitable for 9th transformation stage swordsmen. After the 10th level alchemy was the human level alchemy, suitable for origin stage swordsmen. The earth level alchemy was suitable for deity condensation stage swordsmen. The higher level heaven level alchemy was suitable for deity condensation stage swordsmen and above. Next was the classification of alchemy. There were alchemy that could assist in cultivation, heal internal injuries, heal external injuries, heal both internal and external injuries, replenish blood, recover sword chi, recover mental strength, increase mental strength directly, increase cultivation directly, and awaken potential in a short period of time. All in all, there were many classifications of alchemy. They were richer and more complicated than the 5 small classifications of the way of sealing. Different types of alchemy had different levels of value. But in general, alchemy that could recover mental strength were more precious. Alchemy that could increase cultivation directly were even more precious. As for alchemy that could increase mental strength directly, they were even more precious. As for alchemy that could awaken potential, it depended on how it was awakened, the degree of awakening, and the side effects. For example, the bedevilment pill was one of the best alchemy that could awaken potential. It was extremely precious. Unfortunately, Chu Mu had already returned it to Instructor Lingyun. Other than the classifications of alchemy and the classifications of alchemy, there was also the method of alchemy. Alchemy wasn't something that could be practiced just because one wanted to. First, one had to be familiar with the pharmacology. Otherwise, how could one practice alchemy if one didn't know the characteristics of the herbs and how they could be used with other herbs? Familiarizing oneself with the pharmacology was a huge undertaking. One had to know how many spiritual herbs were there in the world. There were so many that it was impossible to count them. Currently, there were many that had been counted. If one wanted to become an alchemist, one had to be familiar with the pharmacology of thousands of basic herbs. If one wanted to continue on the path of alchemy, One had to be familiar with the pharmacology of more herbs. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. This would take up a lot of one's time. Familiarizing oneself with the pharmacology was only the first step. After that, one had to understand the mutual promotion and suppression of herbs. That was the second step. After that, the real alchemy began. The composition of an alchemy pill, the method of alchemy, the techniques, and so on had to be mastered. If Chu-Mu had to start from the most basic learning, he wouldn't be willing because it would take up a lot of his time and delay the path of the way of the sword. However, after receiving the inheritance, Chu-Mu directly gained a huge amount of knowledge. At least the pharmacology of hundreds of thousands of herbs were all obtained by Chu-Mu. Although Chu-Mu hadn't fully grasped it yet, it had already become a memory in his mind. As long as he was willing, he could use it after searching a little. Moreover, if he got all the herbs in the memory, he could naturally react and know the names of the herbs and so on. This saved Chu-Mu a lot of time to complete the first step. The second step, the combination of herbs, the mutual promotion and suppression, and so on also existed in Chu-Mu's mind. It was equivalent to saving Chu-Mu a lot of time, and he could search for and use it at any time. The third step was the various refining methods of the alchemy pill. There were many alchemy furnaces, the timing and technique of putting the herbs in, the refining process, and the final pill collection technique in the inheritance. From the most basic to advanced and profound, it was enough for Chu-Mu to slowly master. In alchemy, in addition to the pharmacology of herbs and various techniques, there was also a very important condition: the pill formula. The so-called pill formula referred to the formula of a certain kind of alchemy pill. Different alchemy pills required different medicinal herbs. Even if the ratio of the same medicinal herbs was different, different alchemy pills would appear. Without a pill formula, alchemy was a joke. If one was not careful, they would kill themselves. The way of alchemy was an independent path. All aspects were indispensable. Fortunately, in the inheritance there was also a portion of pill formulas from the 1st grade to the 10th grade. There were also human-level and earth-level alchemy recipes, but there were fewer of them. As for heaven-level alchemy recipes, there were none. Chu-Mu also found that the upper limit of the inheritance he received was the Great Grandmaster level, which was the level where he could refine earth-level alchemy pills. This inheritance was the inheritance of the ancient world. The pill formulas in it naturally also belonged to the ancient world. Chu-Mu was not sure whether it would work in Heaven Wasteland domain. If not, then he would have to get some pill formulas in Heaven Wasteland domain. However, low-level pill formulas should not be precious, so it was not difficult. Chu-Mu had now received the inheritance, but he had not refined any alchemy pills. Therefore, it was obviously unrealistic for him to refine high-level alchemy pills all of a sudden. It was also impossible to succeed. Therefore, he could only start from the lowest level of alchemy pills. Receiving the inheritance did not mean that Chu-Mu had become a great grandmaster in alchemy. Just like the inheritance of the way of sealing, he needed to learn, and it was best to practice. The effect would be best, and he could also master it in the shortest time. After the inheritance was completed, and Chu-Mu had roughly finished reading the contents of the inheritance, it was late at night. However, he did not need to sleep, so in the following time, he had to study alchemy techniques and various techniques to prepare for tomorrow. This could be considered as hugging Buddha's feet at the last minute. But for a monster like Chu-Mu, hugging Buddha's feet was better than others working hard for a period of time. Time passed little by little. The night was as cold as water, and there was a desolate taste. Chu-Mu was immersed in the various knowledge and techniques of alchemy. His hands were unconsciously waving, as if forming a strange hand seal, which was the basic technique of alchemy. Gradually, the night faded, and it was not so cold. A trace of white appeared in the sky, like the belly of a fish. Then, sunlight also appeared, like a sword light shining in all directions, dyeing a part of the sky golden. Chu Mu, who was immersed in comprehension, did not realize at all. He was still comprehending the various techniques of alchemy until there was a series of knocks on the door, causing the wooden door to vibrate gently. The sound instantly spread throughout the house, and also into Chu Mu's ears, waking Chu Mu up. Chapter 756. Under Nailan Fenghua's lead, Chu Mu arrived at the small pill house, accompanied by the maid, Xiao Huan, and 2 guards. Along the way, Nailan Fenghua briefly introduced the small pill house to Chu Mu so that Chu Mu had a more intuitive understanding of the small pill house. After that, she called out the staff of the small pill house to let Chu Mu get to know them. The small pill house was indeed small. The total area was estimated to be less than 100 square meters. It was divided into 3 parts. One was the shop, one was the alchemy room, and the last was the inner hall. Inside the small pill house there was a shopkeeper, a shop assistant, and an alchemist. Chu Mu had met the shopkeeper before. The shop assistant was a young man in his 20s. His cultivation was not high, only at the 8th level of the sword chi realm. As for the alchemist, it was actually a flattering title because he was just an alchemy apprentice. After getting to know each other, the shopkeeper and the shop assistant went about their own business. Nailan Fenghua briefly introduced Chu Mu and asked the alchemy apprentice to bring Chu Mu to the alchemy room. They waited in the inner hall. Alchemists had a rule. When refining pills, no one was allowed to watch. Firstly, it was to prevent their own alchemy techniques from being leaked. Secondly, they were afraid of being disturbed and causing the refinement to fail. This alchemy apprentice was called Qin Yang. He was 38 years old and did not have a master. His alchemy skills were gathered from various books and items related to alchemy over the past 7 or 8 years. Through continuous effort, he tried little by little. To put it simply, he was an unorthodox person. He had never received any guidance, nor did he have any formal learning. When he knew that Chu Mu was an alchemist, he was very respectful to Chu Mu. The alchemy room of the small pill house was quite small. There were shelves around with some medicinal herbs on them. In the middle, there was a bronze alchemy furnace. Under the furnace, there was black charcoal. It was one of the types of charcoal that could burn for a long time and had a high temperature. It was usually used to refine pills. What kind of pills do you usually refine? Chu Mu asked indifferently. He had the bearing of a master. Energy pill, golden injury pill, blood replenishing pill, and now I'm trying to refine the small revitalizing pill. Qin Yang replied honestly. Do you have any pill recipes? Give them to me. Chu Mu said. Without hesitation, Qin Yang took out 4 pill recipes from the shelf at the side. This pill formula was considered precious in the hands of an average person. However, in the hands of an alchemist, its value was extremely low. This was because these pills were all low-grade pills. For example, the energy pill was a first-grade pill. Its main use was to recover one's physical strength. On the other hand, the golden injury pill and the blood replenishing pill were second-grade pills. They were mainly used to treat external injuries and replenish blood. As for the small revitalizing pill, it was a third-grade pill that was mainly used to treat internal injuries. After studying for more than 10 years, he was still only able to refine energy pills, gold injury pills, and blood replenishing pills. It was enough to see how miserable Qin Yang was. Thinking about it, alchemy was not something that everyone could do. It required sufficient talent. Other than talent, one also needed sufficient resources and so on. Qin Yang had some talent, but he was severely lacking in resources. He lacked the guidance of a true alchemist and lacked formal learning. Under these various restrictions, even if he spent a few more years, he would only become more proficient in refining those energy pills. Well, you can go out first, Chu Mu said while looking at the pill recipes. Qin Yang was startled and his expression couldn't help but be a little sad. Previously, Nailan Fenghua said that Chu Mu was an alchemist. Coupled with Chu Mu's extraordinary temperament, Qin Yang instinctively felt that Chu Mu was extraordinary. He intended to stay here and observe a little. Maybe it would be very helpful to him. However, now that he heard Chu Mu's words, he felt that there was no hope. To be honest, Qin Yang was extremely eager to get the guidance of a true alchemist. Even if it was just watching from the side, he was willing to pay any price for it. Unfortunately, every true alchemist was very noble. They simply looked down on an unorthodox apprentice like him, so he didn't have any chance. Qin Yang left the alchemy room with a sad expression. Chu Mu felt the change in his mood, but he didn't care. For pill recipes, Chu Mu glanced at them and memorized all the content. In the inheritance that he received, there was no such pill recipe. Chu Mu also didn't intend to refine the pill recipes that he received, at least not now. First was the energy pill. According to the pill recipes and the inheritance of the pill recipes, Chu Mu immediately found the corresponding medicinal ingredients on the surrounding wooden shelf. The Heaven Wasteland domain was definitely related to the ancient world. Therefore, in the inheritance that Chu Mu received, there were hundreds of thousands of medicinal ingredients that could be used in the Heaven Wasteland domain. At least the majority of the medicinal ingredients were similar. After preparing the medicinal ingredients for the energy pill, Chu Mu began to ignite the charcoal and heat up the bronze cauldron. Then, when the time came to heat up the cauldron, he closed his eyes and recalled the technique of refining pills and the records on the energy pill recipe. Half an hour later, the bronze cauldron was hot enough. Chu Mu opened the cauldron lid and a gust of hot air suddenly emitted from inside. Immediately, according to the pill recipes, Chu Mu began to put in the medicinal ingredients in an orderly manner. There were a total of 5 medicinal ingredients for the energy pill. They had to be put in order, and the quantity was also precisely regulated. Refining pills, was to remove the impurities within the various medicinal ingredients, extract the essence within, and then combine these essences in a certain way. This so-called method was the technique of refining pills. Without the technique of refining pills, the essence of the medicinal ingredients could also be combined, but that was the most superficial combination. The final product could not even be called a pill. The so-called pill was the aggregation of the essence of various medicinal ingredients, and then produce some kind of beneficial change. The superficial combination was like piecing things together. It would not produce any qualitative change and was completely useless. Chu Mu put in the first medicinal ingredient and closed the cauldron lid. The high temperature began to burn the medicinal ingredient, completely locking the cauldron lid. He activated the charcoal flame, increasing it to the maximum. The temperature of the entire bronze cauldron continued to rise. Chu Mu's consciousness extended outwards, seeping into the interior of the bronze cauldron. Under the high temperature, the interior began to show signs of melting. When the medicinal ingredients began to melt, Chu Mu waved his hands, continuously patting the bronze cauldron to control the temperature of the flames. If the medicinal ingredients were allowed to remain under the high temperature, they would be destroyed. Controlling the temperature was extremely important. What? He asked you for the pill formula? In the inner hall, Naylan Fenghua was shocked after learning about the situation. The others also looked at each other. Miss, I told you, he's definitely not an alchemist. Which alchemist doesn't have an alchemy furnace and doesn't even have a pill recipe? You have to know that's not some precious pill recipe, but the most basic pill recipe. The maid, Xiao Huan, found the room to express herself and immediately said, "He's definitely lying to you. When the time comes, he'll waste a batch of medicinal ingredients, and the cauldron might explode, causing losses and serious injuries to himself." Naylan Fenghua did not speak. She lowered her head slightly, somewhat uncertain. The shopkeeper sat quietly at the side and did not speak. The shop assistant stayed in the shop in front, waiting for business to come. Time slowly passed. "Let's see first," Naylan Fenghua said. The mental strength of an alchemist was stronger than the average person, and Chu Mu's mental strength was much stronger than that of many alchemists. His mental strength penetrated into the bronze cauldron, and he could observe every change in the cauldron. Moreover, he could use his mental strength to influence the extraction of medicinal ingredient. Ordinary alchemists, or even alchemy masters, could not do this. There were alchemy techniques on the outside and mental strength on the inside. The combination of the inside and outside increased the refining efficiency of the medicinal ingredients by several times. Soon, the first medicinal ingredient was extracted one after another, leaving behind the purest medicinal liquid. Chu Mu quickly opened the cauldron lid and used his mental strength to directly take the pure medicinal liquid out of the cauldron. He placed it in a container prepared by the side and stored it well. Then, he put in the second medicinal ingredient and began to extract it. This was the procedure of ordinary alchemists. First, they would extract the essence of each medicinal ingredient. However, it was Chu Mu's first time refining pills, so he followed the normal procedure. Not long after, all 5 medicinal ingredients were extracted into the essence, and the purity reached 90%. If word got out, who knew how many alchemists would be shocked? One must know that the extraction of each medicinal ingredient has a degree. Under normal circumstances, the purity of the essence obtained by ordinary alchemists is about 50%, that is to say, 50% of impurities are mixed. If there is enough experience and good technique, the purity can be increased to 60%, 70%, or even 80%. However, the higher the purity, the greater the difficulty. If one is not careful, the medicinal essence may be destroyed under the high temperature, and the risk is great. Generally speaking, the purity of the essence liquid reaching 80% is very difficult, and it is already surprising. How shocking it is to reach 90%. Unfortunately, Chu Mu was not satisfied. In the inheritance, the extraction of each medicinal ingredient, the purity of the essence liquid is higher than 90%, and even reaches the point of 99%. Let's refine a furnace of energy pills first. Chu Mu thought to himself, and put the 5 medicinal essences into the bronze furnace according to the order, so that the burning temperature of the charcoal is maintained at a low temperature. Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness entered the bronze furnace again, and between the waving of his hands, he performed the basic alchemy technique. Under the coordination of the internal and external, the 5 medicinal essences in the furnace began to approach each other and fuse. This kind of fusion was a deep-level fusion. Chu Mu's hands waved continuously, using the basic techniques in the inheritance memory, and there were a total of 13 movements. Under the slow fire, it calcined slowly, and his spiritual consciousness assisted to promote the fusion of the medicinal essences. Time passed little by little, and the 5 medicinal essences in the bronze furnace also penetrated each other and fused into a ball. Next, he had to let the 5 medicinal essences completely fuse and produce a qualitative change, and then let it solidify to form a real pill. As for how many pills would be formed after the pill was formed, Chu Mu was not sure at the moment. He could only do his best. Chapter 757. Chu Mu was refining pills in the alchemy room, while Naylan Fenghua and the others were waiting in the inner hall of the small elixir house. Time passed by slowly, and soon 2 hours had passed. Within these 2 hours, the small elixir house had not made a single transaction. In other words, no one had come to buy pills in these 2 hours. This was a tragedy. The pills sold by the small elixir house were all very low level. The main ones were the energy pill, gold injury pill, and blood replenishing pill. There were also a few minor yang restoration pills. The energy pill, gold injury pill, and blood replenishing pill were all refined by Qin Yang, while the minor yang restoration pill was brought by Naylan Fenghua. This kind of small elixir house was too weak and did not have any competitiveness. It was only a matter of time before it closed. The temperature in the alchemy room was extremely high. Ordinary people would not be able to withstand it. Even an alchemy apprentice like Qin Yang would be sweating profusely if he stayed here for a long time. He would have to leave to rest and replenish his water. However, Chu Mu was not affected at all. At this time, he had already refined 4 types of pills: energy pill, gold injury pill, blood replenishing pill, and minor yang restoration pill. Possessing the inheritance of the pill secret codex, as well as various memories, Chu Mu's innate comprehension was monstrous, and his mental remembrance was incomparably powerful, above normal alchemy grandmasters. Adding on the fact that the pills he concocted were of extremely low rank, Chu Mu instantly grasped them. Chu Mu had succeeded in his first attempt at pill concoction. There were 12 energy pills, 10 gold injury pills and blood replenishing pills, and 8 minor yang restoration pills. Chu Mu didn't know how many pills the other alchemists could produce in one furnace when concocting these 4 types of pills. Therefore, he didn't have much of a feeling. Next, he identified the quality of the pills. Not enough. Putting down the 4 types of pills, Chu Mu shook his head slightly. Obviously, he was not satisfied with this refining. If Qin Yang was here, he would definitely jump in shock. After resting for a while, Zhang Xian's mind was in a whirlwind as he recalled every single detail of his pill concoction. It was as if he was replaying it and he could see it clearly. After that, he compared it with the memories he had obtained from the inheritance and found his own shortcomings. He would then perfect his flaws and do his best to do better the next time. In order to improve the quality of the pills, the first thing to do is to improve the purity of the medicinal herb's essence. Chu Mu thought to himself as he began to think about how to improve the purity of the medicinal herb's essence. As he thought about it, Chu Mu suddenly thought of his own spiritual consciousness. With the assistance of spiritual consciousness, he could help in the extraction of medicinal herbs. If he directly used his spiritual consciousness to participate, would he be able to improve again? Thinking of this, Chu Mu thought about the feasibility again and immediately took action. Chu Mu took out the 5 herbs needed to refine the energy pill and heated up the furnace again. Then, he began to put in the first herb. His spiritual consciousness entered the furnace and began to extract the herbs. Chu Mu took the initiative to directly use his spiritual consciousness to enter the melted medicinal herbs. Together with the technique and high temperature, he began to remove the impurities in the medicinal herbs. With the direct participation of spiritual consciousness, the efficiency was higher. After the extraction was completed, Chu Mu took out the medicinal herb's essence and identified it. He found that the purity was 95%, which was 0.5% higher than before. However, compared to 99%, it was still not enough. Next, Chu Mu was not in a hurry to refine the pills. Instead, he focused on extracting the medicinal herb's essence. There were a lot of medicinal herbs here. They were all low-level medicinal herbs and their value was not high. It was a good place to practice. The continuous extraction and the participation of spiritual consciousness made Chu Mu more and more proficient in extracting medicinal herbs' essence. In the blink of an eye, another 4 hours had passed. Within these 4 hours, Chu Mu had extracted over 300 medicinal herb essences. His proficiency had greatly increased, and the purity of the medicinal herb essences he extracted had reached 97%. At the same time, the extraction speed had also greatly increased, and the time taken had been reduced by 1/3. With the inheritance, coupled with his own monstrous perception and tyrannical spiritual consciousness, the improvement of the medicinal herb's essence in just 4 hours was enough to surpass the efforts of the general alchemist for more than 10 years. Chu Mu was so busy that he forgot himself. The people waiting outside were impatient. "Qin Yang, how much time do you need to refine a batch of energy pill?" Nalan Fenghua asked. "Energy pill, half an hour." Qin Yang froze for a moment and replied. "What about other pills?" Nalan Fenghua asked again. Golden injury pill and blood replenishing pill both need 2 hours. The small revitalizing pill has not been successfully refined yet, Qin Yang said. Nalan Fenghua nodded. Chu Mu entered the alchemy room. 3 hours had passed, but there was still no movement. Then, another 2 hours passed. At this time, Chu Mu was still extracting medicinal herbs essence, and it was the energy pill. Because he broke through the bottleneck, the 5 medicinal herbs essence of the energy pill had reached 99%. As for 100%, it was too difficult. Even if Chu Mu obtained the inheritance, the alchemy grandmaster could only achieve 99%. The 5 medicinal herbs essence had reached 99% purity. Chu Mu began to use these 5 medicinal herbs essence to refine pills. The second time he refined the energy pill, combined with the previous shortcomings, Chu Mu was confident that he could refine a better energy pill this time. His spiritual consciousness was directly involved again, watching the fusion process of the 5 medicinal herbs essence in a deep level. It was vivid in his mind. This feeling was very strange, and Chu Mu's basic alchemy technique was much more proficient. It was easy to do. Under the cooperation of the inside and outside, the formation speed of the energy pill was significantly increased. About 5 minutes later, the 5 medicinal herbs essences were completely fused and solidified, forming one pill after another. When the alchemy furnace came out, Chu Mu already knew that the number of pills produced this time was higher, reaching 15 pills. Each energy pill was the size of a soybean. Its appearance was delicate, smooth, and round. It looked very attractive, but there was no fragrance of the pill. After distinguishing, Chu Mu nodded. The quality of this batch of energy pills was indeed higher than the first batch. The number of pills produced was also higher. He suddenly remembered that he had been in the alchemy room for a few hours. He should go out and let them see the pills. Thinking about this, Chu Mu walked out of the alchemy room with the 5 bottles of pills and went to the inner hall. Seeing Chu Mu appear, everyone was stunned at first. Nalan Fenghua quickly stood up and looked at the 5 porcelain bottles in Chu Mu's hand with a hint of expectation. Chu Mu placed the 5 porcelain bottles on the tea table in the inner hall. These are. Nalan Fenghua sat down again. Pills, Chu Mu said lightly. Qin Yang looked at Chu Mu and then at the 5 porcelain bottles. Nalan Fenghua picked up one of the porcelain bottles and pulled out the cork. With a pop, a very faint fragrance of pills floated out. If one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have noticed it. Why is there no fragrance of pills? Maid Xiao Huan sniffed hard. So there is, but why is it so faint? Could it be a waste pill? Nalan Fenghua poured out a pill. Everyone's gaze fell on the pill. Energy pill! Everyone exclaimed. Their expressions changed immediately. A trace of disappointment flashed across Nalan Fenghua's face. Energy pill was a first-grade pill. It was the lowest grade among all the pills. Its value wasn't high. I thought there would be a surprise. It's actually the lowest-grade energy pill, Maid Xiao Huan said sarcastically. Qin Yang, on the other hand, stared at the light yellow energy pill without blinking. Gradually, his expression turned serious as he strode over. Miss Nalan, can you let me see the pill? While speaking, Qin Yang's voice was trembling slightly. Nalan Fenghua passed the medicinal pill to Qin Yang. Qin Yang carefully picked it up and sniffed it. A faint medicinal fragrance wafted from it, causing his spirit to tremble. After that, he carefully stared at the medicinal pill in his hand, examining it from all angles. The more he looked, the more excited he became. Master Chu, may I ask if this is a flawless quality energy pill? The excited Qin Yang abruptly turned towards Chu Mu and gave him a deep bow. At the same time, he called out the title of Great Master. The words he said caused everyone present to be stunned and shocked. The Nalan family's business mainly focused on pills. Although Nalan Fenghua didn't know how to refine pills and wasn't outstanding in identifying pills, she was very familiar with the basic knowledge of pills. As her maid, Xiao Huan also had some understanding of pills. As for the shopkeeper, because he was an elite pill shop, he naturally had some understanding. The so-called flawless grade referred to the quality of the pill. The same pill, according to the purity of the medicinal herb's essence before refining, the technique during the refining process, and the difference between the final pill and the final pill, would have different grades. From low to high, it could be divided into 5 grades: rough, ordinary, excellent, flawless, and perfect. The quality of the pill affected the effectiveness of the pill and the amount of pill toxins. Although the pill was extracted from the medicinal herb's essence, it also had a slight toxicity. It wasn't good for the human body to take it too many times. Therefore, the higher the grade of the pill, the less pill toxins and the greater the effectiveness of the pill. It was said that a perfect grade pill would have no pill toxins and the effectiveness of the pill would be 100%. However, a perfect grade pill was a legend. Being able to reach the flawless grade was already the limit. For an alchemy apprentice like Qin Yang, most of the energy pills he refined were only of the rough grade. If used well, it could reach the ordinary grade. With the flawless grade pills in their hands, everyone was very excited. Naylan Fenghua quickly opened the bottle corks and poured out the pills. In addition to the energy pill, there were also gold injury pill, blood replenishing pill, and small revitalizing pill. After Qin Yang's identification, they all reached the flawless grade. The 5th bottle was opened and a pill was poured out. It was also light yellow and looked like an energy pill. However, after Qin Yang identified it, his whole body trembled violently because of excitement. Perfect, perfect, perfect grade. Qin Yang's body trembled violently as if he had epilepsy. His eyes widened as he stuttered and pointed at the energy pill in his hand. Suddenly, the inner hall exploded. Chapter 758. Shock, admiration, and trembling pupils. The feeling in their hearts couldn't be described with words. Everyone's gaze fell on Chu Mu as if they were looking at a miracle. The flawless grade pill had already shocked them to the core. The perfect grade energy pill was even more shocking. They were so shocked that they didn't know where they were going. On the other hand, Chu Mu was indifferent. He knew that it wasn't a perfect grade energy elixir. It could only be considered half perfect. A perfect grade elixir required 100% of the medicinal herb's essence to be refined. The elixir refined with 99% of the medicinal herb's essence could only be considered half perfect. Of course, in the eyes of ordinary alchemists, it was perfect. Qin Yang's admiration for Chu Mu was like a torrential river. Flawless, perfect, any of these qualities was something he couldn't achieve in his lifetime. He couldn't even refine an excellent grade elixir. Master, he was definitely a master-level figure. Qin Yang's body was trembling. He was excited to see a master with his own eyes. I need more medicinal herbs and elixir recipes, Chu Mu said faintly. No problem. Naylan Fenghua reacted quickly and agreed without hesitation. Chu Mu's attitude made it clear that he wanted to help her. There wouldn't be another opportunity like this if she missed it. Naylan Fenghua immediately ordered to use the remaining funds to purchase a large amount of medicinal herbs and elixir recipes. Come with me. Chu Mu glanced at Qin Yang and said, I. The excited Qin Yang was stunned. He pointed at himself dumbfoundedly. When he saw Chu Mu turn around, he quickly followed. Miss. Xiao Huan was also very excited. This is our only chance. Naylan Fenghua took a deep breath and showed a demeanor that ordinary people didn't have. I'll refine the elixir. You watch from the side. Learn as much as you can. Chu Mu said to Qin Yang as they walked into the alchemy room. Yes. Qin Yang was extremely excited. He bowed deeply to Chu Mu. His attitude was as if he regarded Chu Mu as his most respected teacher. It had to be known that Qin Yang had been practicing alchemy for 7 or 8 years, and everything he had learned had been fumbling around by himself. The path of alchemy was broad and profound. Without guidance, without proper learning, It was like walking in the dark of the sea. Countless times he had lost his way, but by relying on his passion for alchemy and his indomitable will, he had finally persevered. However, only he could understand the hardships and sorrows he had gone through. There were a few times when he thought of giving up, but when he thought of the price he had to pay, he persevered. He had paid a great price and even went bankrupt before finally reaching this step and becoming an apprentice alchemist. He was able to concoct grade 1 and grade 2 medicinal pills. Countless times, Qin Yang had longed for the guidance of a real alchemist. He had also knelt in front of some alchemist's door and begged for guidance. Unfortunately, no one paid him any attention. Who would have thought that this time, there would actually be a grandmaster who could concoct perfect quality pills who was willing to let him observe. That was much more useful than giving him a few pointers. "Calm down," Chumu lightly said. His voice seemed to contain a trace of power, causing Qin Yang's excitement to gradually calm down. As for Chumu, he had already heated up the furnace and was preparing to refine pills. Before, he had extracted a large amount of medicinal essence. This time, Chumu wanted to refine all of this essence into pills. Qin Yang almost held his breath. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Chumu's actions. In his eyes, Chumu's every action seemed concise and direct, but it also contained a unique charm. It was full of mystery. It was so natural, so smooth, and so compliant. Qin Yang's spiritual sense entered the furnace. This point, Qin Yang was unable to sense, so he could only watch Chumu's actions. Chumu also intended to let Qin Yang see clearly, so he didn't save any of his alchemy technique. He started from the most basic and slowed down his speed so that Qin Yang could better grasp it. After obtaining the Alchemy Secret Codex and possessing some of the Alchemy Grandmaster's memories, as long as Chumu worked hard, he could become an Alchemy Grandmaster and be respected by countless people. However, this wasn't what he wanted. Alchemy was only temporary. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't stay here for long. Nalan Fenghua had saved his life. It wasn't something that could be repaid by merely helping him refine some pills. Since that was the case, it was better to nurture Qin Yang. At least, in Chumu's eyes, Qin Yang wasn't a bad person and wasn't a petty person. Chumu continuously refined pills, not stopping for a moment. Qin Yang kept staring at Chumu's hands. His eyes were sore, but he still persevered. The many questions that had accumulated in his mind for many years were slowly solved as he watched. The original Qin Yang had never learned any proper alchemy technique. It was completely pieced together. Being able to refine grade 1 and grade 2 pills was enough to show that he had some talent in alchemy. Qin Yang's hands also moved unconsciously. He was a little rusty, but he could vaguely see the shadow of a basic alchemy technique. Furthermore, he was becoming more and more proficient and precise. Chumu's alchemy speed was extremely fast. Furthermore, the number of pills he refined was astonishing. The quality of the pills had reached the flawless level, which shocked Qin Yang even more. 2 hours. In just 2 hours, Chumu had refined all the medicinal essences into pills. There were 3 types of pills: the energy pill, the golden injury pill, and the blood replenishing pill. Next, I'm going to extract the medicinal essences. Watch carefully, said Chumu. Qin Yang's eyes immediately lit up. Extracting medicinal essences was also very important. Although he was very proficient, he didn't have a good method or technique. Therefore, the purity of the medicinal essences he extracted was very low, often only 50%. If he was lucky, he could reach 60%. Chumu began to extract the medicinal essences, mainly the medicinal herbs for the small revitalizing pill. There were a total of 7 kinds. The higher the level of the medicinal herbs, the more difficult it was to extract. Therefore, Chumu could only extract the essence with a purity of about 95% at first. As he continued to extract, the purity increased to 96%, and then to 97%. It was very difficult to reach 99%. He still needed to extract more and be more proficient. Even so, Qin Yang's eyes bulged and almost fell to the ground. He almost knelt on the ground to worship Chu Mu. It was unheard of. Even the chief alchemist of the Heavenly Pill Building did not have the ability to achieve 95% purity with just a casual move. A master, no, even a master alchemist couldn't do it. A grandmaster was definitely a grandmaster. This time, Chu Mu directly extracted all the medicinal herbs in the alchemy room to refine the small revitalizing pill. Then, after a short rest, he began to refine the small revitalizing pill. Qin Yang watched the whole process. The next morning, all the essences were melted, and a large number of flawless small revitalizing pills were obtained. Chu Mu was full of energy, but Qin Yang needed to rest. Therefore, Chu Mu let him rest, and he continued to extract other medicinal herbs. It took a few hours to extract all the medicinal herbs in the alchemy room. After that, it was time to refine the pills. All the energy pills had reached the so-called perfect quality. A small portion of the golden injury pill and blood replenishing pill had reached the perfect quality. Most of them were flawless quality. After counting, there were more than 1,000 energy pills, golden injury pills, and blood replenishing pills, and more than 300 small revitalizing pills. This was only the result of Chu Mu's day and night of hard work, which shocked Nalan Fenghua and the others. "Miss, as long as we take out these pills, we can definitely make a name for ourselves," Xiao Huan said happily. "No, although these pills are of high quality, there aren't many of them. Once we sell them all, we can make a name for ourselves, but we can't guarantee the follow-up." Nalan Fenghua didn't get carried away. She understood that these pills were refined by Chu Mu, and Chu Mu definitely wouldn't stay here for long. This was a kind of intuition. If Chu Mu left, there wouldn't be such flawless and perfect quality pills, which would affect the small elixir house in the future. Therefore, they had to have a strategy. A large number of medicinal herbs were purchased, and once again, the alchemy room was filled. Chu Mu asked for another alchemy furnace, so that Qin Yang could also extract the essence of medicinal herbs, and Chu Mu would give him pointers from time to time. Qin Yang's foundation was very solid, and after watching Chu Mu's alchemy process, he had some understanding. In addition, with Chu Mu's pointers, the early stage of his progress was very fast. In just one day, he was able to extract the essence of medicinal herbs with a purity of 60% under normal conditions. Qin Yang also knew that Chu Mu had the intention of nurturing him, so he worked exceptionally hard. Listening to a wise man's words was better than 10 years of studying. At this moment, Qin Yang had such a feeling. 7 or 8 years of hard work had made his foundation very solid, but it was also very messy. There was no pattern, and many questions had accumulated in his mind. However, Chu Mu had solved his questions and allowed him to straighten out the foundation he had learned and gradually form it. Therefore, in the near future, Qin Yang's alchemy skills would improve by leaps and bounds, which was equivalent to digging out his potential to the limit. At that time, he should be able to become a real alchemist. Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness was very tyrannical, and his physical strength was abundant. He was a monstrous existence, and he also knew how to better save his own energy when refining pills. Therefore, he didn't need to rest. As long as he wanted, he could refine pills 24 hours a day. And Chu Mu also unexpectedly found that using spiritual consciousness to help in alchemy had the effect of enhancing the vitality of spiritual consciousness. This discovery made Chu Mu very happy. The vitality of spiritual consciousness was very important, and he already knew it before. However, the 6 consciousness stars were sealed, and he couldn't cultivate with the help of the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture to increase the vitality of spiritual consciousness. He didn't expect that in order to repay the debt of saving his life, he chose to inherit the Alchemy Mystic Codex. Using spiritual consciousness to help in alchemy could also enhance the vitality of spiritual consciousness. If his mental remembrances activity was strengthened to a certain degree, Chu Mu would be able to merge his mental remembrance and other energies into one, causing every attack to contain mental remembrance's impact, making it incomparably powerful. Chapter 759. With the divine sealing blood curse, the sword intent couldn't be refined. Chu Mu wasn't in a hurry to cultivate his sword aura. Basically, he spent all his time on pill concocting so that his mental intense activity would increase bit by bit. Of course, this speed of improvement was far from comparable to cultivating the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture, but it was better than nothing. During this period, because Nailan Fenghua didn't reply to Yuan Jiang took the initiative to come and voluntarily lowered his conditions. However, he was rejected by Nailan Fenghua. The angry Yuan Jiang accepted the Heavenly Pill Building's invitation and became one of their professional alchemists. The small pill house continued to operate normally. The pills that Chu Mu refined weren't sold immediately. Instead, they were stored. Nailan Fenghua had her own plans. In addition to purchasing a large amount of herbs, Nailan Fenghua also paid a considerable price to obtain 2 new pill recipes. One was a 3rd-grade pill recipe, while the other was a 4th-grade pill recipe. The 3rd-grade pill recipe was the Desolate Chi pill. Its purpose was to assist a swordsman in cultivating his desolate sword aura. It was generally used by swordsmen in the sword aura realm. As for the 4th-grade pill recipe, it was a healing pill for external injuries. It was suitable for swordsmen in the Qi transformation realm, especially those who had reached the initial stage. Basically, Nailan Fenghua suppressed everything. It was either success or failure. Time flew. In a flash, half a month had passed since Chu Mu started refining pills. This half a month was very significant to Chu Mu. He had made great progress. The essence of the herbs for the energy pill, golden injury pill, blood replenishing pill, and small revitalizing pill could easily reach 99%. The pills that were refined were also of perfect quality. Unfortunately, 99% was a huge hurdle. Chu Mu couldn't break through to 100%, but he didn't force it. After refining a large amount of perfect quality energy pills, golden injury pills, blood replenishing pills, and small revitalizing pills, Chu Mu started refining the Desolate Chi pill. As 3rd-grade pills, the Desolate Chi pill was more difficult than the small revitalizing pill. However, it was very easy for Chu Mu. The first batch was of flawless quality, and the second batch was of perfect quality. On the other hand, the Desolate Chi pill was more difficult. The first 10 batches were of flawless quality. It wasn't until the 11th batch that he refined the perfect quality. In half a month, Qin Yang had also completed an important transformation. Under Chu Mu's guidance, Qin Yang had taken an extremely important step on the path of alchemy. He had truly stepped through the door of the path of alchemy. The purity of the herbs from grade 1 to grade 3 had reached at least 70%. The quality of the pills refined had completely reached the normal level. Occasionally, if there was a good performance, he could even refine excellent quality pills. However, it was very rare. The small pill house had no more funds. Even the funds that Nailan Fenghua had brought over were all used up. It was time to sell the small pill house. The small pill house didn't have much reputation to begin with. Therefore, they had to have corresponding methods to promote their signboard and attract customers. Chu Mu had nothing to do since he didn't have any herbs to refine the pill. So, he casually said a few words, which immediately opened Nailan Fenghua's mind. Gradually, a clear idea appeared in her mind. First, they distributed flyers to attract customers' attention. Then, they gave out all kinds of benefits and so on. Overall, the small pill house couldn't be compared to the heavenly pill house. However, they had an advantage, which was a large amount of high-quality pills. For example, the words "flawless quality pills" on the flyer attracted a lot of attention. No matter if it was a hype or a fact, it did attract a lot of people's attention. Poor Nayland Fenghua's 6 guards. They were sent out to distribute flyers all over the city. They felt very embarrassed. No matter what, they were still Qi High warriors. One had to know that in a low-level city like the desolate border city, there weren't many Qi High warriors. However, this was Nayland Fenghua's order. They had to obey. 3 days later, the small pill house opened for business again. It was decorated with lanterns, gongs, drums, and lion dances. It was in full swing. A large number of people gathered. Most of them were just watching. But then, they found out that there really were flawless quality pills for sale. Spirit Energy Pill, Gold Injury Pill, Blood Replenishing Pill, Small Revitalizing Pill, Desolate Chi Pill, and Wound Congealing Pill. Although they weren't high-quality pills, their quality was outstanding. It immediately caused a frenzy of buying. Swordsmen knew that the higher the quality of a pill, the less poison it had and the better its effect. Naturally, its price would be higher. However, the flawless quality pills sold by the small pill house were only twice as expensive as normal quality pills. It was completely within the acceptable range. Some people even fought to buy the pills. Fortunately, Nayland Fenghua had already prepared for it. They only sold a portion of the flawless quality pills. They also set a limit on the amount of pills that each person could buy. In addition, they also matched the pills with lower quality pills, those that were rough and normal. After a few hours, all the pills were sold out. When the small pill house closed its doors, they also notified the customers that in 3 days, they would sell another batch of flawless quality pills as a publicity stunt. They believed that after today's popularity, their business would be even better in 3 days after the news spread. In the inner hall, everyone was incomparably excited. A large number of desolate coins and a small number of desolate stones were piled up in front of everyone. Desolate coins were the common currency of the Heaven Wasteland domain. First grade to third grade pills could be traded with desolate coins. However, from fourth grade onwards, one had to use desolate stones. Desolate stones were equivalent to spirit stones. They also had different grades. The desolate stones here were only low-grade desolate stones. No matter what, this was a very good start. And with these desolate coins and desolate stones, they could buy more medicinal herbs. Next, Qin Yang started to refine pills. Chu Mu would also guide Qin Yang while he was cultivating. Qin Yang's alchemy skills improved little by little. At the same time, he would also refine some desolate qi pills and wound congealing pills. Qin Yang had already mastered the basic alchemy technique. However, he still needed to continue before he could turn it into an instinct. As expected, the small pill house sold pills again 3 days later, and it was even more popular. 3 days was enough for those who bought the pills to experience the benefits of high-quality pills. And this time, there were normal quality pills and flawless quality pills. As for perfect quality pills, there were no plans to sell them yet. In order to prevent chaos, Nayland Fenghua's 6 guards were also present to maintain order. 5 Qi High Realm swordsmen and 1 9th Transformation Realm swordsman completely controlled the scene. No one dared to cause trouble. Another sale was completed. This time, there were even more desolate coins and desolate stones. However, they were still used to buy medicinal herbs. 3 times in a row, the business was even more popular. The small pill house's reputation was finally established in the border city. Naturally, the Heavenly Pill House also noticed the small pill house and started to collect information about it. Originally, the small pill house did not even have the qualifications to enter the Heavenly Pill House's eyes. Naturally, the Heavenly Pill House would not pay attention to it. However, it was different now. The low-grade pill market had been impacted to a certain extent. The Heavenly Pill House could not ignore it. It had to be said that the Heavenly Pill House's foundation in the border city was very stable. Their information had also penetrated into every corner of the border city. In just half a day, the Heavenly Pill House had investigated everything. The property of the Nayland family in the barren fire city. In the heavenly pill house, the house master tapped his finger on the back of the chair. Alchemist Chu Mu, with his intelligence and the information he had found, he immediately confirmed that the small pill house, which had been like stagnant water, had suddenly risen because of this Chu Mu. Flawless pills. Although they are low-grade pills, they are still very impressive. The heavenly pill house master, Yen Lai, thought, even if this Chu Mu can only refine low-grade pills, he is still a talent. No matter what, this person must be used by the heavenly pill house. If he becomes a professional alchemist of the heavenly pill house, the conditions can be relaxed. House master, this person might be a professional alchemist of the Nayland family. An elder said. Even if he is, we have to pay a price to poach him. If he does not accept Humph, he can either get out of the border city or die here. The heavenly pill house master's eyes flashed with coldness. The heavenly pill house had been operating in the border city for dozens of years. They had a stable foundation and many experts. They were not afraid of the Nayland family at all. House master, leave this matter to me, the elder said. After the elder of the heavenly pill house found Chu Mu, he did not care about Nayland Fenghua and the others and directly said, "The heavenly pill house sincerely invites you to become a professional alchemist of the heavenly pill house and enjoy the highest treatment." Suddenly, the faces of Nayland Fenghua and the others changed. Now, the hope of the small pill house was on Chu Mu. If Chu Mu left, the small pill house would definitely be in trouble again after selling the pills. However, whether he left or stayed was Chu Mu's own will. They had no right to interfere. "Thank you for your kindness, but I am very satisfied now," Chu Mu smiled and said. Nayland Fenghua had said before that 50% of the ownership of the small pill house belonged to Chu Mu. Chu Mu did not agree. He only wanted to repay the kindness, but Nayland Fenghua insisted on giving Chu Mu 50% of the ownership of the small pill house. The current small pill house was indeed not very good, but as long as Chu Mu was there, it would definitely have a bright future if it continued to develop. 50% of the ownership meant that Chu Mu would have 50% of the profits, which would be a lot. Chu Mu did not refuse Nayland Fenghua's insistence. However, he had his own thoughts. One day, he would have to leave, so 50% of the ownership was actually not important. You have to think carefully. Our Heavenly Dan building has been in the desolate city for decades. We have rich resources and a deep foundation. Our financial resources are not something a mere small pill house can compare to. We also have many professional alchemists for you to communicate with, and many alchemy manuals for you to read. The elder of the Heavenly Dan building said. If it was any other alchemist, they would definitely be moved, but Chu Mu would not. You can leave now, Chu Mu said indifferently. You. The elder of the Heavenly Dan building was stunned, and then became angry. He stared fiercely at Chu Mu. Very well, I hope you remember the choice you made, and also remember my words. The desolate city is the desolate city of the Heavenly Dan building. I will give you 3 days to prepare, and after 3 days, leave the desolate city. Otherwise, be careful of your little life. After saying those threatening words, the elder of the Heavenly Dan building turned and left. Chapter 760. Brother Chu, why don't you leave Border City first? Nayland Fenghua said. The Heavenly Dan building's threat was not a joke. No need. Chu Mu shook his head. He did not put the Heavenly Dan building in his eyes. How about this? Let Wang Kai and the others protect you. Nayland Fenghua said. They're your guards, said Chu Mu. Only he knew his own strength, so he didn't need protection. But Nayland Fenghua insisted. In the end, 3 of the guards protected Chu Mu, while the other 3 protected Nayland Fenghua. The small Dan building's alchemy room was temporarily handed over to Qin Yang. Chu Mu left the building and returned to his original courtyard. The 3 guards stayed outside Chu Mu's door, maintaining a high level of vigilance. If it was before, they would definitely not be willing. But now, they were very willing. Although the Heavenly Pill Pavilion had given Chu Mu 3 days, there was no guarantee that the Heavenly Pill Pavilion's people would not take action now and give Chu Mu a warning first. One must know that Chu Mu was very important now. It was related to the future of the small Dan building and Nalan Fenghua's fate. The 3 Qi High Realm swordsmen stood outside the door. Chu Mu shook his head slightly and sat cross-legged on the bed, beginning to practice the sword Qi arts. He planned to make his foundation more stable. Therefore, he refined the great desolate sword Qi again and again to make it purer. This would help him build a more solid foundation for his future cultivation. As long as he was willing, he could break through faster and increase his cultivation base. In a short period of time, it would not be difficult for him to cultivate to the origin realm again. But because of this, Chu Mu was not in a hurry to increase his cultivation base. He wanted to build a solid foundation for himself. The great desolate sword Qi had circulated for many cycles and became purer. Chu Mu extended his finger and a sand-like yellow sword Qi spat out. There were no impurities and its purity was shocking. But Chu Mu still felt that it was not enough. After putting away the great desolate sword Qi, Chu Mu could feel the breathing of the 3 people outside, even though it was very weak. Outside, night gradually fell. It wasn't until late at night that Chu Mu's figure flashed, and he flew out of the side window. He didn't make a sound and quietly closed the window. The 3 guards outside didn't notice anything. Even though Chu Mu's cultivation had dropped drastically and was only at the 10th stage of the sword Qi realm, he was still a true expert. He could still use the flying swan illusory steps and left the courtyard in a flash like a wisp of smoke. Late at night, the desolate city seemed very quiet. On the streets, there were no lights and no one could be seen. It was pitch black, and it was difficult to see one's 5 fingers. At this time, most people had already entered dreamland. Only the sound of the night watch from time to time made the night even more silent. Chu Mu's figure turned into a wisp of smoke, flying through the night streets. He was as silent as a ghost, and the night watchman did not notice him at all. Chu Mu's destination was the Heavenly Pill Building. Instead of being passive, he might as well take the initiative to attack. He didn't care if the other party knew his strength. It was better if they knew his strength. He wasn't afraid of them finding trouble with him. Although he wasn't very familiar with the desolate city, the Heavenly Pill Building was very conspicuous. Therefore, Chu Mu soon found the location of the Heavenly Pill Building and quickly approached it. The Heavenly Dan Building had regular guards who were all at the Qi Transformation Realm. In a low-level city like the desolate border city, a Qi Transformation Realm warrior could be considered an expert, and a Qi High Realm warrior could be considered a great expert. If a sword artist surpassed the Qi High Realm, they would be considered a strong warrior. Not to mention a Qi Transformation Realm swordsman, even a primary realm swordsman would find it difficult to find Chu Mu's whereabouts. Chu Mu easily passed by the guards of the Heavenly Pill Building and entered the building. His tyrannical mental power had already been released, covering the entire Heavenly Pill Building. Everything in the building was clearly seen by him. The Heavenly Pill Building had a total of 4 floors. The Heavenly Pill Building Master lived on the 4th floor, and he was still awake. After finishing his work, the Heavenly Pill Building Master rubbed his temples and thought of Chu Mu. "I hope you know what's good for you, or else," he said in a low voice. "Or else what?" An indifferent voice sounded. "Who is it?" The Heavenly Pill Building Master was a powerful swordsman who had reached the 8th transformation of the 9th transformation realm. His reaction was extremely fast. He stood up, grabbed the sword beside him, and pulled it out halfway. The sword reflected a dazzling brilliance under the luminous pearl. A trace of coldness filled the air, and his eyes were extremely sharp, piercing through the air. From the reaction of the Heavenly Pill Building Master, it could be seen that his combat strength was extraordinary and that he had rich combat experience. "Aren't you talking about me?" The indifferent voice sounded again. The heavenly pill-building master only felt the light in front of him darken and return to normal. Then, a figure appeared in front of him. It was as if he had been standing there for a long time. This feeling was very strange, and it made his muscles tense. "You are the heavenly pill-building master." Yen Lai widened his eyes. With a trace of disbelief, he said two words that shocked him. "Chu Mu?" "That's me," Chu Mu said. He sat down opposite Yen Lai very naturally, as if he was very familiar with this place. Yen Lai took a deep breath. His eyes were filled with vigilance toward Chu Mu. He realized that he couldn't see through Chu Mu's cultivation because he couldn't feel the slightest fluctuation of sword qi on Chu Mu's body. There were only three possibilities. First, Chu Mu didn't have sword qi cultivation and wasn't a swordsman. Second, his cultivation was above Yen Lai's, so he concealed his fluctuations so that Yen Lai couldn't sense them. Third, Chu Mu cultivated a special technique to conceal his aura, and its level wasn't low. The first possibility could be completely eliminated, because how could a person without cultivation appear in front of him without being discovered by the guards and without him noticing? Yen Lai was angry with the person who collected the information, who said that Chu Mu didn't have cultivation. The second and third possibilities were possible, but Yen Lai was more inclined to the second one because he didn't notice Chu Mu approaching. He only reacted when Chu Mu made a sound. Thinking of this, Yen Lai's forehead suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. A chill invaded his body, and he couldn't help but shiver. His hair stood on end. If it was just a hypothesis, if Chu Mu didn't make a sound and secretly attacked, would Yen Lai be able to resist? Chu Mu didn't say anything. He saw the changes in Yen Lai's expression and knew what Yen Lai was thinking. Sneaking into other people's residence in the middle of the night is unbecoming of a master. After a while, Yen Lai finally calmed down. He put down his sword and sat down opposite Chu Mu across the table. He was sure that Chu Mu didn't plan to attack. Otherwise, it would have been a good opportunity. "How many strikes do you think it would take for me to kill you?" Chu Mu acted as if he didn't hear Yen Lai's words and continued speaking. At the same time, a sword magically appeared in his hand and he slowly pulled it out. The melodious sound and the reflected light caused Yen Lai's expression to greatly change. He squinted his eyes and stared at the sword in Chu Mu's hand. He was extremely shocked. Yen Lai didn't know much about swords, but he could still tell that the sword in Chu Mu's hand was of a higher quality than his. It was a royal-grade sword. A swordsman who could use a royal-grade sword was obviously at the Origin Realm. Even the weakest Origin Realm swordsman could easily kill him. Yen Lai's forehead was covered in cold sweat again. He was extremely nervous. The difference between the 9 Transformation Realm and the Origin Realm was too obvious. He didn't dare to do anything that might cause a misunderstanding. No matter what, he had to save his life first. "You must have a reason for coming here so late at night. Please speak clearly." Yen Lai couldn't be tough now. "Let's talk about the heavenly pill building. It shouldn't be just in the desolate border city, right?" Chu Mu said casually as he took out a special cloth to wipe the heavenly desolate sword. "The heavenly pill building in the desolate border city is just a branch." Yen Lai thought for a moment and said, "This wasn't a secret." Since he had said it, there was no need to hide it. The headquarters of the Heavenly Pill Building is in the ancient desolate border city. The ancient desolate border city is a high-grade city. We have many experts in the Heavenly Pill Building. People with strength like mine can be found everywhere. Moreover, if I am killed, the Heavenly Pill Building will investigate the murderer and take revenge. Chu Mu could tell from Yen Lai's words that the Heavenly Pill Building's influence wasn't small. At the very least, it was stronger than the Nalan family. They weren't to be trifled with. The meaning of Yen Lai's words was obvious. Even if Chu Mu killed him, it would be useless. The Heavenly Pill Building would definitely not let Chu Mu go. Chu Mu also didn't intend to kill him, at least not now. "You can rest assured that I have no interest in killing you now. Chu said and glanced at Yanlai. But you have to remember that the heavenly pill building focuses on pills. The small pill house also focuses on pills. We can compete. If you want to play some tricks, you can try and see if I am afraid of the heavenly pill building. Mu's tone was very flat and not sharp at all. However, the threat in it was very obvious. Yanlai could completely hear it. From Mu's tone, Yanlai could hear a kind of pride, a kind of sharpness, and a strength that was not afraid of anything. If he really wanted to play some tricks, Mu would definitely do it. At that time, he would lose his life. As for how the heavenly pill building would take revenge in the future, he didn't know. After thinking about it, his life was still more important. There was no need for Yanlai to answer directly. After Mu finished speaking, his figure flashed and he left under Yanlai's eyes. The essence of the flying swan illusory steps was displayed incisively and vividly. Under Yanlai's gaze, Mu's figure didn't move. After a few breaths, it slowly faded and then dissipated like smoke. Only then did Yanlai react. Mu had already left. This method once again made his forehead ooze with drops of sweat and slide down his cheeks. A cold current rushed up from the soles of his feet, along his back and into his brain. He couldn't help but shiver. Taking a few deep breaths, Yanlai tried to calm himself down and began to think about how to deal with the current situation. Chapter 761. The matter with the Heavenly Dan building had been settled, but Nalan Fenghua and the others did not know what was going on. The 3 days had passed, but the Heavenly Dan building had not done anything. Only Mu knew what was going on, but he pretended that he did not know anything. He could not say that he personally went to the Heavenly Dan building master to settle the matter. Otherwise, he would be treated like a fool. Everything went on as usual. Mu continued to practice alchemy, while Qin Yang spent all his time on alchemy. This was his opportunity, a great opportunity, and he had to seize it. If he missed it, there would not be another opportunity like this. Nalan Fenghua and the others did not dare to let down their guard. There were still 3 Qi high swordsmen who acted as Mu's bodyguards. They followed Mu in and out of the building to prevent any sudden attacks. The small Dan building also followed the rule of opening every 3 days. Every time, they would sell some flawless and normal quality pills. Every time, they would earn a large amount of desolate coins and low-grade desolate stones. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. One thing worth mentioning was that on a certain night, Mu was attacked by an Origin Realm swordsman. In an instant, Mu determined that the Origin Realm swordsman's strength was at the initial stage of the Origin Realm. His attack was seen through by Mu in an instant. With a casual counterattack, the Origin Realm swordsman was injured and used a secret technique to escape. If he wanted, Mu could have chased after him. However, he did not chase after him. Mu continued to concoct a large amount of pills. If he wanted, he could concoct perfect quality pills. However, for the current situation, he controlled them to be flawless. Qin Yang's alchemy skills had also improved significantly. He could easily concoct normal quality pills, and there was a 20% chance that he could concoct excellent quality pills. The business of the small Dan building was getting better day by day. It had already taken over half of the low-grade pill market in the desolate city. Not only did it earn back the money it had paid, but it also made up for its previous losses. It even had a slight surplus. Most importantly, the reputation of the small elixir house had been thoroughly established. Many swordsmen wanted to come here to purchase high-quality elixirs. Consuming a flawless quality elixir was more effective than consuming 3 or 4 normal quality elixirs. Moreover, the elixir poison was less. The Heavenly Dan building also sent people to purchase some flawless quality pills for analysis. Fortunately, the highest grade of flawless pills sold by the small elixir house was only 4th grade. Moreover, there was only one kind, and it was the lowest value pill for treating external injuries. The impact on the Heavenly Elixir House's pill market was not great. At most, the sales of low-end pills would decrease, and it would not hurt them. If the small Dan house launched a mid-tier pill from the 4th to the 6th grade, it would really cause a direct impact on the Heavenly Dan building. At that time, the Heavenly Dan building would definitely make a big move. Amidst his vigilance, the small pill pavilion continued to develop. Another month passed. Because of alchemy, Chu Mu's mental energy had become much more active. He tried to use his increased mental energy to attack the God Seal blood curse that sealed away his sword intent. To his surprise, he found that it was actually effective. Although the effect was minimal, it allowed Chu Mu to see the hope of breaking the God Seal blood curse faster. After that, Chu Mu's daily schedule added another one. He would use his mental energy to attack the God Seal blood curse until his mental energy was completely exhausted. Then, he would recover. This way, the alchemy time would be reduced by more than half, but it was enough. Qin Yang's alchemy skills had improved again. The probability of refining a first-grade pill had reached 40%, the probability of refining a second-grade pill had reached 35%, and the probability of refining a third-grade pill had reached 30%. He began to refine fourth-grade pills. Once he successfully refined an ordinary fourth-grade pill, it would mean that he had become a true alchemist. In fact, in terms of refining low-end pills, Qin Yang had already surpassed ordinary alchemists by a lot. This was because his foundation was more solid and stable, and he also had Chu Mu's guidance. The business of the little pill house was changing with each passing day, rising steadily. Naylan Fenghua was already considering buying a bigger store. This was because the current little pill house was truly too small, and the alchemy room was also too small. 2 bronze pill furnaces seemed very crowded. At this moment, the people from the Heavenly Dan house suddenly came, making Naylan Fenghua and the others feel as if they were facing a great enemy. This is from the house master to Chu Mu. The people from the Heavenly Dan house had obviously been instructed. Although their attitude was cold, they didn't cause any conflict. They just put down a post and turned to leave. Hearing that the post was given to Chu Mu by the Heavenly Dan house master, Naylan Fenghua and the others didn't open it without permission. Instead, they asked someone to enter the alchemy room and invite Chu Mu out. "Be careful," Naylan Fenghua said. She was worried that the Heavenly Dan house master would tamper with the post, such as poison. However, Chu Mu just smiled. He knew that the post was safe. He picked it up and opened it. Then, he put it on the table so that Naylan Fenghua and the others could see the content. The content of the post was very direct and simple, but it made Naylan Fenghua and the others' faces change. They were all shocked. The general idea was that the Heavenly Dan house was going to hold an alchemy competition. When the time came, any alchemist would be able to participate. The Little Elixir House was also invited to participate. If the alchemist of the Little Elixir House participated in the competition and won first place, the Heavenly Dan house would recognize the Little Elixir House's position in the border city. They wouldn't suppress the Little Elixir House through any abnormal means, and they would even give half of the elixir market to the Little Elixir House. However, if the Heavenly Dan house won first place, the Little Elixir House would have to leave the border city. Chu Mu expected that the Heavenly Dan house would make a move. He didn't expect it to happen 2 months later. Moreover, it was an alchemy competition. It seemed that the Heavenly Dan house master had reported the matter between him and the Little Elixir House. After some research, he decided to use this method. Even with the Heavenly Dan house's influence, it was very unwise to offend an Origin Realm swordsman who didn't know the depth of his strength. Chu Mu already knew that the Origin Realm swordsman who attacked him more than a month ago was definitely from the Heavenly Dan house. His purpose was to test his strength. To injure an Origin Realm swordsman with a single sword strike, the Heavenly Dan house must have thought that his strength surpassed that of an Origin Realm swordsman. It was possible that he was an Origin Realm swordsman, and Deshang could also be in the complete Origin Realm. With such strength, they couldn't investigate his background, which would indeed make people vigilant. Even with the heavenly Dan House's influence, they didn't want to offend him. Just think about it. If they offended an Origin Realm swordsman, Deshang, or even a complete Origin Realm swordsman, they would have to be on high alert at all times. If that Origin Realm swordsman wanted to take revenge, the heavenly Dan House would suffer great losses. Therefore, using an alchemy competition was the most appropriate. Everything depended on alchemy skills. The winner would be the king, and the loser would be the bandit. The 50% elixir market wasn't small. The fact that the heavenly Dan House dared to propose such a bet was enough to show their confidence. It also meant that during this time, the heavenly Dan House in the border city had received reinforcements. A powerful alchemist had arrived. What do you think? Chu Mu asked Nalan Fenghua. This was a bet. If they won, the small elixir house would have a real opportunity to develop. 50% of the border city's elixir market would be enough for the small elixir house to soar. However, if they lost, they would have nothing. Nalan Fenghua would have to return to her family and accept her fate. This was a choice that needed to be made carefully. I believe in you, Nalan Fenghua said without hesitation. Her eyes sparkled as she stared at Chu Mu. Her eyes were filled with a deep sense of trust. If that's the case, then let's wait for 50% of the border city's elixir market, Chu Mu said with a smile. His tone was filled with absolute confidence. The alchemy competition held by the heavenly Dan House would be held in a month. In other words, Chu Mu still had a month to prepare. He was full of confidence, but he wouldn't be blindly arrogant. The heavenly Dan House had been established in the Heaven Wasteland domain for many years. They were deeply rooted and had a strong foundation. There were many professional alchemists inside, including alchemy grandmasters and alchemy grandmasters. They dared to hold such an alchemy competition because they had full confidence in themselves. Therefore, Chu Mu's opponents were at least alchemy grandmasters, or even alchemy grandmasters. Chu Mu asked Nalan Fenghua to purchase more high-grade elixir recipes and medicinal herbs. He wanted to go all out in this 1 month to improve his attainments in alchemy. While Chu Mu was preparing, the heavenly Dan House couldn't be idle. The small elixir house opened for business once every 3 days as usual. Nalan Fenghua took out all the desolate coins and desolate stones to purchase various elixir recipes and medicinal herbs. However, elixir recipes were very precious. It was very difficult to purchase even one. 10 days later, she purchased a 4th-grade elixir recipe called the Great Desolate Chi Pill. It was an auxiliary elixir for Chi Transformation Realm and small success swordsmen to cultivate desolate sword Chi. Chu Mu also began to refine the Great Desolate Chi Pill. Qin Yang worked hard day and night, and his alchemy skills improved little by little. Every little improvement, even if it was insignificant, made him feel excited from the bottom of his heart. The news about the alchemy competition in the desolate city soon spread out. Everyone in the desolate city knew about it. Then, Nalan Fenghua also spread the contents of the bet between the heavenly Dan House and the small elixir house, letting everyone in the desolate city know. In this way, if the small elixir house won in the end, the heavenly Dan House would naturally not be able to return. Otherwise, the people in the desolate city would spurn the heavenly Dan House, leading to the failure of the heavenly Dan House in the desolate city. This was a precautionary move. Therefore, there were all kinds of discussions in the desolate city. Naturally, it was also related to the sudden rise of the small elixir house. But no matter what, this was still a grand event, and it would attract the attention of countless people. Time passed, and Chu Mu temporarily put down his cultivation. He wholeheartedly focused on alchemy. The more memories he obtained from the inheritance, the more he integrated them. His alchemy skills improved by leaps and bounds. If it were not for the lack of elixir recipes and medicinal herbs, Chu Mu could also refine higher-grade elixirs. However, it was difficult to purchase higher-grade elixir recipes. Moreover, with the current financial resources of the small elixir house, It was also quite difficult to purchase higher-grade elixir recipes. Chu could only continuously use lower-grade medicinal herbs to refine lower-grade elixirs. The basic alchemy techniques became more and more proficient and accurate. Gradually, it became a kind of instinct, as if he was born with it. Chapter 762. The day of the alchemy competition had arrived, and the venue was the square of the desolate city. Most of the participants were alchemists from the Heavenly Pill Building and the Small Pill House. In addition, there were a few alchemists from other places who were also planning to participate. The referee of the competition was an elder of the Alchemist Union. The Alchemist Union was one of the biggest forces in the Heaven Wasteland domain. It was also the gathering place of most of the alchemists in the Heaven Wasteland domain. It was the authority of the alchemists in the Heaven Wasteland domain, and was also responsible for the alchemists' level assessment. The elder of the Alchemist Union was called Chen Chigu. He had a good reputation and was an alchemist grandmaster. He was about 70 or 80 years old, and had a white beard. He looked like an immortal, and his eyes were upright. He was not a petty person, and could fairly preside over the alchemy competition. In addition, the Heavenly Pill Building Master and the others were sitting side by side with Chinchigu. As for the people from the Small Pill House, they were watching from the side. After registering, the alchemists who were participating in the alchemy competition stood in front of their alchemy furnaces. Every furnace was the most common bronze furnace, and there was an empty table next to it. Qin Yang also participated in the competition. He was already able to freely refine 4th grade dawn. He was a real alchemist. He didn't expect to get any ranking, but he was able to motivate himself in such a competition. The benefits of exchanging pointers and exchanging pointers were not small. The Small Pill House only had Chu Mu and Qin Yang, while the Heavenly Pill Building sent out 10 alchemists. 9 of them were professional alchemists from the desolate city's Heavenly Pill Building, and 1 of them was foreign aid. He looked to be less than 40 years old, and his face was expressionless as if he had facial paralysis. There were also 4 alchemists from other places who came together. The youngest was less than 20 years old, and the oldest was in his early 30s. Among them, there was a young man in his 20s who was the most eye-catching. He was in high spirits and had an extraordinary temperament. His cultivation had also reached the low qi high realm, and he had a smile on his face. He looked very confident, and in terms of alchemy, he should not be low. In total, there were 16 alchemists participating in the alchemy competition. The referee, Chen Chigu, announced the rules and process of the alchemy competition. The rules of the alchemy competition was that the alchemists could only refine their own pills. They used the same bronze furnace and black charcoal to refine the same pills. The competition was divided into 4 stages: preliminaries, semifinals, semifinals, and finals. At the beginning of the preliminary round, every alchemist received a pill recipe. The pill recipe was a 4th grade pill called the Tiger Strength Pill. After consuming it, one's strength would be doubled for a period of time. Its value was not low, but it was also relatively unorthodox. The 16 alchemists all began to move. Chu Mu glanced at the pill formula and had a clear idea in his mind. However, Qin Yang couldn't do the same. He kept staring at the pill formula and carefully studying it. Like Qin Yang, there were also some alchemists. Among them, besides Chu Mu, the one with the most outstanding performance was the middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Pill Building and the eye-catching young alchemist from another city. Putting down the pill recipe, he began to refine the pill. The first step was to extract the essence of the medicinal herbs. Along with the Tiger Strength Pill's pill formula, as well as the Tiger Strength Pill's medicinal ingredients, were also brought up. There were a total of 3 sets, and they were placed on the table beside him. In other words, every alchemist had 3 chances to refine the Tiger Strength Pill. If they failed all 3 times, they would be directly eliminated. Chen Shigu sat on the high platform in front of the alchemist. His eyes flashed as he took in the actions of every alchemist. Then, he focused his attention on the middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Pill Building, the young alchemist with an outstanding temperament, and Chu Mu. He was sure that the final winner would be decided by these three people. The others were just there to serve as a foil. The Tiger Strength Pill was only a 4th-grade pill. It was not difficult to refine, so it was not very eye-catching. After extracting the medicinal essences, they began to put them into the pill furnace to be refined. The young alchemist with an outstanding temperament was the first to open the furnace. A musky medicinal fragrance immediately filled the air. It was very light. Then, the middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Pill Building came out of the furnace. The third was Chu Mu. After about half an hour, all the alchemists had finished refining the pills. Immediately, someone picked up the pills and presented them to Chen Shigu for evaluation. Qin Yang. After Chen Shigu finished appraising the pills, he read out 8 names. You are eliminated. The others will rest for half an hour and advance to the semifinals. Although it was somewhat expected, Qin Yang was still a little sad. However, he immediately adjusted himself and left the alchemy competition to act as a spectator. Chen Shigu did not announce the rankings of the alchemists who had advanced to the semifinals. It did not matter. The most important thing was who would be the champion in the finals. The champion would be rewarded. The bet between the small pill house and the Heavenly Pill Building was just an additional bet. After half an hour, the semifinals began. The pill refined in the semifinals was not simple. It was a 6th-grade pill called the Great Revitalizing Pill. The Great Revitalizing Pill was actually an upgraded version of the Small Revitalizing Pill. It was also one of the better pills for treating internal injuries in the Qi transformation realm. This alchemy competition was hosted by the Heavenly Pill Building. No matter what, it was impossible for them to take out a rare pill formula. Chu Mu was somewhat at a disadvantage, but he also had some benefit. The advantage was that he got a pill formula for free, and it was a 6th-grade pill. He was at a disadvantage for the first time. On the other hand, the middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Pill Building had refined a lot of great revitalizing pills. Even the young alchemist with the outstanding temperament had refined it many times. Chu Mu carefully looked at the pill formula. The middle-aged alchemist and the young alchemist with the outstanding temperament had already started to extract the herbs. They were very familiar with this process. After putting down the pill formula, Chu Mu realized that he was the last person to start extracting the essence of the herbs. Chen Shigu looked at Chu Mu and frowned. He wondered if he had misjudged him. According to his judgment, Chu Mu should have refined a lot of great revitalizing pills. How could he act as if it was his first time refining one? He heated up the furnace and put in the first herb. He used his mind to extract the essence. A 6th-grade pill required everyone to treat it seriously. Even an alchemy grandmaster could fail if he was not careful. There was a method to extract the essence of medicinal herbs, and there was also a method to concoct pills. The young alchemist's 10 fingers constantly poked at the bronze pill furnace. His body moved around the bronze pill furnace, and every time he poked at it, the bronze pill furnace would tremble slightly. The middle-aged alchemist spread his legs and stood in front of the bronze furnace. He put his palms together and patted the bronze furnace with a rhythm of 3 times and 4 times. Iron finger extraction technique. It turns out that he is that guy's successor. Chen Shigu saw the young alchemist's movements and straightened his body. His eyes flashed and he secretly nodded. He looked at the middle-aged alchemist and said, "It turns out that it is the 7-fold palm extraction technique. Not bad." Shortly after, she swept her eyes over the others and landed on Chu Mu. She let out a disappointed sigh because Chu Mu had used the most basic extraction method. The only thing worth praising was that he had followed the rules and had a very solid foundation. Did I really misjudge him? Let's observe him a little more. Chinchigu thought to himself. The heavenly pill house master had been paying attention to Chu Mu. He did not dare to underestimate Chu Mu, who was a swordsman with a high cultivation and was very young. Who knew if there was a great power behind him? Chu Mu was the third alchemist to extract the essence of the herbs, which gave Chinchigu some anticipation. Chu Mu started to refine the pills and put in the essence of the herbs. His movements were very natural and harmonious. The young alchemist and the middle-aged alchemist had already put all the essence of the herbs into the furnace and started to refine the pills. The young alchemist performed the 8 styles of iron finger again, while the middle-aged alchemist performed the 8 styles of iron finger. The middle-aged alchemist performed the 8 styles of iron finger. On the other hand, Chu Mu still used the basic alchemy technique. Chu Mu was the third alchemist to refine the pills. Before him were the young alchemist and the middle-aged alchemist. Their eyes were full of confidence. After all the alchemists had finished refining the great revitalizing pills, they presented the pills to Chinchigu one by one for him to appraise. When alchemists refined pills, the most important thing was the quality of the pills and the number of completed pills. After the appraisal, Chinchigu once again announced the 4 eliminated alchemists. The other 4 advanced to the semi-finals, and Chu Mu was one of them. After an hour of rest, the semi-finals began. This time, they were refining the 7th rank pill, Desolate Fire Pill. The Desolate Fire Pill was a type of pill that aided in cultivation. It was suitable for swordsmen at the initial chi high and initial level. It could effectively refine the desolate sword chi and make it purer. In the semi-finals, 2 alchemists would be eliminated, and 2 would advance to the finals. While Chu Mu was still studying the pill recipe, the young alchemist and the middle-aged alchemist had already started to extract the essence of the herbs. Indeed, they had the advantage. It seems like the 2 of them will advance to the finals. Chinchigu thought to himself as he glanced at the young alchemist and the middle-aged alchemist. Then, he looked at Chu Mu and felt that it was a pity. However, he is a good seedling with a solid foundation. I will get to know him after the competition. If his character is good enough, I can accept him as my disciple and pass on my legacy. Chinchigu thought to himself. Chu Mu was still using the basic alchemy method. In the eyes of others, there was nothing outstanding about it. Therefore, most of the people's attention was focused on the young alchemist and the middle-aged alchemist. Qin Yang stared at Chu Mu, and he could not help but feel nervous. He was very confident in Chu Mu, but his opponents were not simple. Finally, the 4 alchemists finished refining the Desolate Fire Pill and presented it in front of Chinchigu again. Chinchigu first glanced at the 4 alchemists, then he retracted his gaze and looked at the pills in front of him. After looking carefully, he suddenly thought that he had seen wrongly. After a while, he announced the 2 eliminated alchemists. Impossible! The young alchemist's face changed as he roared. He could not believe that he had been eliminated and could not advance to the finals. The ones who advanced to the finals were Chu Mu and the middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Dan building. It was really unexpected. Chapter 763. The young alchemist stared at Chu Mu with an unfriendly expression. He thought that he and the middle-aged alchemist should have advanced to the finals. He didn't expect that it would be Chu Mu in the end. Referee, I have a question. How can he advance to the finals? The young alchemist was proud and arrogant. He couldn't tolerate this kind of failure. He advanced to the finals because the quality of the pills he refined is higher than yours. The number of pills he refined is not lower than yours, Chinchigu said. That's impossible. The young alchemist couldn't accept this statement. Chinchigu's expression turned cold and unpleasant. Are you questioning my level? Even if you are the disciple of Iron Finger, you are not qualified to shout in front of me, Chinchigu said coldly. The young alchemist felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. He realized that the person in front of him was an alchemy grandmaster. His status was above his own. It was obviously unwise to offend him. He glared at Chu Mu and left his seat. In the end, only Chu Mu and the middle-aged alchemist of the Heavenly Pill Building were left. They rested for half an hour. After half an hour, Chen Qigu announced the rules of the finals. The finals were different from the previous ones. There was no pill formula. The two participants in the finals each reported the herbs they needed. The Heavenly Pill Building was responsible for providing the herbs, but the highest grade could not exceed the 10th grade. In other words, Chu Mu had to solve the problem of the pill formula by himself. Now that the finals were about to begin, Chu Mu had no chance to find a suitable pill formula. It was very unfavorable for him. As for the middle-aged alchemist of the Heavenly Pill Building, he was slightly startled, but he was confident. As a professional alchemist of the Heavenly Pill Building, he had a lot of pill formulas in his mind. He just needed to find the one that he was most confident in winning. Qin Yang was sweating. From the beginning of his contact with Chu Mu, the pill formulas that Chu Mu refined were all provided by the small pill building. The highest grade was the 4th grade. From this point, he could guess that Chu Mu probably didn't have any pill formulas. If there was no pill formula, there was no need to compete in the finals. Chu Mu would have already lost. Naylan Fenghua and the others were also very nervous. This was related to the future of the small pill house and Naylan Fenghua's fate. Chu Mu's expression didn't change, but his mind was racing. He couldn't afford to lose the finals. On the other side, the middle-aged alchemist had already chosen the medicinal pill to be refined and had written down the medicinal herbs needed to refine the medicinal pill. Chu Mu was still in a state of confusion. Since he did not have the opportunity to search for the alchemy recipe, he could only start from the inherited memories and find a more suitable alchemy recipe. There were many pill formulas in the inherited memories, but most of them were not suitable for the Heaven Wasteland domain. Chu Mu had to find a pill formula that was suitable for the Heaven Wasteland domain and the current competition. His thoughts were many times faster than lightning. One pill recipe after another flashed through Chu Mu's mind like a fleeting shadow. Naylan Fenghua and the others were getting more and more nervous. When the expressionless middle-aged alchemist's lips curled into a disdainful smile, Chu Mu's eyes flashed. "This is it," he directly confirmed. Soon after, Chu Mu picked up the brush and wrote down the names and quantities of over a dozen medicinal ingredients on the white paper. Swish, 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 swish. Chu Mu was not afraid of the medicinal herbs for the alchemy recipe leaking out, because even if others knew the various medicinal herbs and quantities needed for the alchemy recipe, it would be very difficult to refine the alchemy recipe. This was because the alchemy recipe also required a time difference. Therefore, even if someone obtained the incomplete alchemy recipe and wanted to refine the alchemy recipe, they would have to go through many attempts, and in the end, it was uncertain whether they would succeed. Not long after, someone brought the various medicinal herbs up. One set of medicinal herbs, which meant that Chu Mu and the middle-aged alchemist only had one chance. Chen Qigu narrowed his eyes and looked at the medicinal herbs of the middle-aged alchemist. His mind was spinning rapidly, and in 3 breaths, he immediately determined what alchemy recipe the middle-aged alchemist was going to refine. But when his gaze fell on Chu Mu's medicinal herbs, he pondered for 10 breaths, but could not think of what kind of alchemy recipe Chu Mu was going to refine. Black crow vine, golden tongue flower, prune grass. Chen Qigu used a voice that only he could hear to recite more than a dozen medicinal herbs. The more he recited, the more puzzled he became. None of the alchemy recipes in his memory were similar, and even some of the incomplete alchemy recipes that he knew were not similar. Could it be that he's going all out? Chen Qigu could not think of such a possibility. He was an alchemy grandmaster, one of the few existences in Heaven Wasteland domain. A alchemy recipe that even he could not follow was too mysterious. The probability of him going all out was relatively high. Subconsciously, he looked down on Chu Mu. The middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building had already heated up the furnace and began to throw in the medicinal herbs for extraction, while Chu Mu closed his eyes and pondered. The alchemy recipe he was going to refine was a 9th-grade pill, suitable for an alchemy grandmaster to refine. It was Chu Mu's first time refining, and he only had one chance. There was simply no time for him to familiarize himself with the process, and the situation was very unfavorable. At this time, Chu Mu was simulating in his mind how to extract the various medicinal herbs better and more efficiently, and extract the essence of the liquid to the greatest extent. The people watching all around began to talk about it. It seems that it's very clear who the champion will be. The young alchemist clenched his fists, very unwilling. He felt that, at this time, the person who should be competing for the championship should be him, and not Chu Mu. Chu Mu did not make any movements, which made the young alchemist feel that he was simply lucky to advance to the finals, and his heart became more and more unwilling. Naylan Fenghua and the others were incomparably nervous, and their hearts were full of worry. No one was optimistic about Chu Mu, except for himself. The middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building threw the last medicinal herb into the furnace for extraction. Chu Mu opened his eyes and began to heat up the furnace, increasing the intensity of the fire. When the furnace was heated to a certain extent, he opened the lid and threw in the first medicinal herb. Compared to the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building, Chu Mu's method of extracting the essence of the medicinal herbs was too different. However, Chu Mu did not care. Everything came from the foundation, and the foundation was the most important. It could be said that there were first basic techniques, and then, based on the basic techniques, there were all kinds of techniques with their own characteristics and inclinations, and there were high and low levels. Chu Mu deeply understood the importance of the foundation. Therefore, although there were more advanced techniques in his inheritance, he still insisted on using the basic technique. He had cultivated the basic techniques to the extreme, as if he was born with them, and could easily master all the advanced techniques. Based on the basic techniques, no matter how profound one's mastery was, it was very difficult to extract the 9th-grade medicinal herbs when only black charcoal and the most common bronze furnace could be used. Chu Mu had a tyrannical mental power, which was something that his opponent did not have. His mental power penetrated into the furnace, wrapped the medicinal herbs, and penetrated into the medicinal herbs. Combined with the external basic techniques, he controlled the temperature in the furnace, concentrated the burning, and maximized the extraction effect. Others could not perceive it, and even the alchemy grandmaster, Chen Qigu, could not see through the mystery. Therefore, Chu Mu's actions did not seem to be attractive at all. Not long after, Chu Mu opened the furnace and took out the first medicinal herb essence. Chen Qigu frowned at first, then relaxed, and his eyes widened. He was a little far away, but he could still see the medicinal herb essence extracted by Chu Mu with his tempered eyes. The purity was definitely not low. It was obviously above the medicinal herb essence extracted by his opponent, the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building. Chen Qigu's heart was filled with doubts. He focused his attention on Chu Mu and watched Chu Mu put the second medicinal herb into the bronze furnace. He was sure that Chu Mu's alchemy foundation was very solid, even above his own. Soon, the second medicinal herb essence was extracted, followed by the third and fourth. Chen Qigu's eyes became more and more dignified, and his heart was full of shock. His heart was full of doubts and puzzlement. Those were 9th-grade medicinal herbs, but the conditions for alchemy were very simple. The combination of the lowest-level bronze furnace and the lowest-level black charcoal, and the use of basic techniques, it was already very rare to be able to extract the medicinal herbs, but it was still possible to extract the high-purity medicinal herb essence. Although it was impossible to judge accurately, Chen Qigu was sure that the purity of the medicinal herb essence was at least 70%, at least 70%. The first time might be good luck, the second time might be a coincidence, but what about the third time? After the third time, what about the fourth time, the fifth time, and the sixth time? Chen Qigu, who was more and more shocked, felt that his previous idea seemed to be wrong again. Even with his own ability, under the conditions of only using the bronze furnace and black charcoal, he would still need to use a more advanced method to extract the 9th-grade medicinal herbs. Moreover, he could not guarantee that he would be able to extract the medicinal herb essence with a purity of 70%. However, Chu-Mu did it again and again. An incredible scene, like a miracle, played out in front of him. Chen Qigu completely ignored the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building and focused all his attention on Chu-Mu. He wanted to see through Chu-Mu. However, no matter how he looked, Chu-Mu was still the same. From beginning to end, he was still using basic techniques, extracting the medicinal herbs at a moderate speed, and there was nothing unusual about it. The curiosity in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Chen Qigu had decided that no matter who the final champion was, he must find Chu-Mu and have a good talk with him. He wanted to know more about this young alchemist. If possible, he wanted to accept him as his disciple. With such a solid foundation, he believed that even if his talent was average, he could achieve something in alchemy. Even if he could not become a grandmaster, he could at least become a master. Chen Qigu's heart was completely filled with love for talent. Finally, under Chen Qigu's repeated shock, Chu-Mu finished extracting more than a dozen 9th-grade medicinal herbs and placed the medicinal herb essences in an orderly manner next to him. Chu-Mu was not worried at all that this kind of pill would be learned by others. Not far away, his opponent, the alchemist of the heavenly pill building, had already put all the medicinal herb essences into the furnace and used his best alchemy technique to fuse the pills. Chapter 764. It was not easy to refine a 9th-grade elixir, especially under such simple conditions. The middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building was fully focused. He gave his full attention and forgot everything around him. At this time, if someone made a move, even if it was a swordsman whose cultivation was many times lower than his, he could kill him in a second. His attainments in alchemy had already reached the peak of the master level. He was only one step away from the grandmaster level. He was one of the alchemy masters with a very high status in the heavenly pill building. Not to mention a 9th-grade elixir, he could even refine a 10th-grade elixir. However, due to the limited conditions, he could only choose a 9th-grade elixir to ensure the final champion. There was only one chance. He had to be more focused. He could not fail because of a little negligence. Chu-Mu also began to refine the elixir. Chen Qigu kept staring at Chu-Mu. He memorized the order and time difference of Chu-Mu's medicinal essences. He searched again, but he still did not know what kind of elixir Chu-Mu was going to refine. He was no longer subjectively assuming that Chu-Mu was going to break a broken jar. Chu-Mu was also very focused. This was his first time refining a 9th-grade elixir. As for the conditions, it did not matter. So far, Chu-Mu had not used better conditions for refining elixirs. A bronze alchemy furnace with ink charcoal. There were many people around, densely packed. Most of their attention fell on the alchemists of the heavenly pill building. Only a few people noticed Chu-Mu. Nalan Fenghua and the others did not speak, but their expressions were full of encouragement and expectation. They were silently encouraging and praying for Chu-Mu in their hearts. They all hoped that Chu-Mu would win. Only with this result could Nalan Fenghua get rid of the fate arranged by her family. She was a person with a gentle appearance, but she had her own persistence and stubbornness in her heart. More than a dozen types of medicinal essences were all thrown into the furnace. Chu-Mu's spiritual consciousness participated in the whole process. When more than a dozen types of medicinal essences gathered together, Chu-Mu's spiritual consciousness came to life. It wrapped around each of the medicinal essences, causing more than a dozen types of medicinal essences to produce a true fusion. The burning flames of the black charcoal brought a high temperature to the bronze alchemy furnace. When this high temperature entered the bronze alchemy furnace, it was somewhat dispersed. However, Chu Mu was able to effectively control this high temperature. The refinement of pills was not about blindly pursuing high temperatures that would cause the refinement of pills to fail and turn into waste. Controlling the changes in temperature was a very important knowledge, and it was also a precise skill that one must master on the path of alchemy. Chu Mu had indeed obtained the inheritance of an alchemy grandmaster, but compared to other alchemists, he had only stepped into the path of alchemy for a short period of time. Even though his perception was monstrous, and he could quickly comprehend and master it, he still lacked enough practice, which was precious experience. Fortunately, Chu Mu had a tyrannical spiritual consciousness, which was an advantage that even an alchemy grandmaster could not compare to. He made full use of this advantage to serve alchemy, achieving better results. The precise control of the temperature made the fusion of more than a dozen types of medicinal essences more efficient and more thorough. At the same time, Chu Mu also tried his best to squeeze out the impurities in the fusion process of the medicinal essences as much as possible, increasing the purity of the medicinal essences as much as possible. Even an alchemy grandmaster could not do this. The second extraction was still in the process of fusing the medicinal essences. Time passed little by little, but no one was aware of it. This was an important final, and almost everyone was holding their breath. The refinement of a 9th-grade pill was not easy, and it required even more time. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed, and the medicinal essences were still being fused. When the 4th hour had passed, the medicinal essences were finally fused. At this time, the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building began to feel tired. Maintaining a high level of vigilance for a long time and constantly performing alchemy techniques was a double burden on his spiritual and physical strength. On the other hand, Chu Mu was calm and composed, and his attitude was calm, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. He did not look like he was refining a 9th-grade pill at all. Even if another 4 hours passed, his tyrannical spiritual consciousness would not be exhausted. The powerful sky wasteland sword physique gave him enough physical strength, endurance, and recovery. Now, he had reached the final step, which was to form the pill. The fusion of more than a dozen types of medicinal essences was impossible to form only one pill in the end. However, the higher the grade of the pill, the lower the number of pills formed. This was common sense and also a rule. The number of pills formed was also one of the key points of the competition. Another key point was the quality of the pill. Of course, the grade of the pill was also the key point of the competition. However, Chu Mu and the alchemist of the heavenly pill building were both refining 9th-grade pills. The grade was the same, and there was no comparison. Forming the pill was an extremely crucial step. If one was not careful, they would fail, and all their previous efforts would be wasted. They would only get a pile of dregs. Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness was still participating in the process of forming the pill, promoting and assisting. He was also able to see the formation of the pill more clearly through his spiritual consciousness. This gave him a deeper understanding of the way of alchemy. Half an hour. This process lasted for half an hour. On the other side, the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building had finished forming the pill. He took a deep breath and sweat appeared on his forehead. After 3 breaths, he slowly exhaled a long breath. Then, he flipped his hands and opened the lid of the bronze alchemy furnace. A scorching aura was the first to spurt out. Then, a strong medicinal fragrance spread out, slowly drifting and spreading. The pill is formed. The heavenly pill building master and the elders of the heavenly pill building were overjoyed. They clenched their fists excitedly, and their faces were full of joy and hope. They firmly believed that the victory belonged to the heavenly pill building, and the small elixir house had to leave Border City. When the pills came out of the furnace, The two plump and shiny red pills attracted the attention of countless people. The alchemist of the heavenly pill building looked at the two pills and smiled. He had used the bronze alchemy furnace and black charcoal, which he had not used for many years, to refine a 9th-grade pill. In the end, there were only 2 pills. He felt that it was not bad. The pills were presented to Chen Qigu. Chen Qigu only glanced at the pills and did not immediately appraise them. His attention was still focused on Chu Mu. This made the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building frown slightly. He seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied. Elder Chen, can you appraise them now? The heavenly pill building master felt that victory was in sight, and the champion was already beckoning. He could not help but ask, "Wait a little longer." "He is not done yet," Chen Qigu replied casually. The heavenly pill building master just remembered that Chu Mu was an expert who was at least as strong as Deshang, who was in the origin realm. Fortunately, there was no time limit for refining pills. Otherwise, Chu Mu would have lost. After another quarter of an hour, Chu Mu opened the lid of the furnace at lightning speed. A white, smoke-like heat rushed out. The onlookers seemed to be able to feel the scorching heat. Then, a light medicinal fragrance filled the air. It was not easy to judge the quality of a pill just by its fragrance. Different pills had different fragrances. However, if it was a perfect pill, it would not emit any medicinal fragrance. When the pills came out of the furnace, the crowd realized that Chu Mu had actually produced 3 pills. Just by looking at the number of pills, he had already surpassed the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building. "The quality is definitely not as good as mine," the alchemist said to himself as he glanced at the pills. "Bring the pills up." Chen Qigu quickly clapped his hands and said. The pills were quickly presented in front of Chen Qigu. 2 different types of pills were placed on each side for him to appraise. Chen Qigu took a few glances and then appraised the 9th-grade pill refined by the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building. After about half an hour, Chen Qigu finished appraising. He raised his head and looked around. Finally, his gaze fell on the face of the middle-aged alchemist of the heavenly pill building. Red Marrow Pill, a 9th-grade pill. It is suitable for Qi High Realm swordsmen to treat their internal injuries. Chen Qigu slowly opened his mouth. Although his voice wasn't loud, everyone present could hear him clearly. "You were able to refine 2 red marrow pills using only a bronze furnace and black charcoal. If I'm not wrong, you're already at the peak of the alchemy grandmaster level. You're only a step away from becoming a grandmaster." Many people were shocked, but the people of the heavenly pill building were full of pride. The peak of the alchemy grandmaster level was a rare talent. Subconsciously, almost everyone thought that the champion was going to be. Chu Mu did not have any strange expression. Chen Qigu had not finished speaking. "After my appraisal, the quality of the red marrow pill that you refined is barely of excellent quality," Chen Qigu concluded. Under such conditions, it was indeed rare to be able to refine a 9th-grade pill of excellent quality, even if it was just barely. Then, Chen Qigu began to appraise the pills refined by Chu Mu. As he looked, the doubt on Chen Qigu's face became more and more obvious. He even used his index finger and thumb to pinch a milky white pill, sniffed it, and then raised his head to observe it from different angles. 15 minutes later, Chen Qigu was still appraising. "It can't be a fake pill, right?" Seeing this situation, someone whispered. The so-called fake pill was a pill that looked like a pill and tasted like one. But in fact, it did not have the effect of a real pill. Taking it would not have the benefits of a real pill. It might just taste okay. Some scum in the alchemy world would refine fake pills and sell them in order to get money and other things. The whispers about the fake pill gradually spread. More and more people thought that it was a fake pill. Otherwise, how could Chen Qigu, one of the elders of the Alchemist Alliance and a Grandmaster Alchemist, not be able to identify it after so long? It could only mean that it was a very high-level fake pill. Even Chen Qigu, a Grandmaster, could not make an accurate judgment. He could only observe it again and again. Nalan Fenghua and the others also heard the talk about the fake pill. The maid Xiao Huan even quarreled with others. Qin Yang was so angry that his face turned red. Only Chu Mu's face did not change. It was as if he did not hear anything. Only he knew what kind of pill it was. Chapter 765. This is not a fake pill. Chen Qigu's words immediately silenced all the doubtful voices. Everyone looked at Chen Qigu, waiting for him to continue. After 10 breaths, Chen Qigu's gaze moved away from the milky white pill and looked at Chu Mu. This pill, after appraisal, is a 9th level pill. It should be a healing pill, but I have never seen it before. What is this pill called? Chen Qigu's words once again shocked many people. A pill that even an alchemy grandmaster had never seen before, and it was not a fake pill. What was going on? Yang reversion pill. Chu Mu opened his mouth and said lightly, 4 swordsmen of the Qi high stage and below, no matter how serious their injuries are, as long as they are not truly dead, after taking this pill, they will be able to maintain their last breath and will not die within 2 hours. After Chu Mu's words, the crowd was first stunned, then they gasped. If what Chu Mu said was true, then the value of this yang reversion pill was extremely high. It could not heal internal or external injuries, nor could it aid in training, nor could it directly increase one's level of cultivation. But it could allow a severely injured person to maintain their last breath for 2 hours. Within these 2 hours, it was enough time to make the appropriate countermeasures and slowly heal. There was a high probability that it could save one's life. It could be said that this yang reversion pill was a life-saving pill. Of course, because it was only a 9th level pill, the yang reversion pill also had its limitations. It could only be used for 2 hours, and it could only be used by swordsmen of the Qi high stage and below. In the entire Heaven Wasteland domain, swordsmen of the Qi high stage made up a large proportion of the population. Therefore, the value of the yang reversion pill was immeasurable. Chen Qigu could not hide the shock in his heart, completely showing it on his face. Strictly speaking, a 9th rank pill actually wasn't that high of a rank. It was simply impossible for such a life-saving pill to appear. However, right now, Chu Mu was telling him that the milky white pill in his hand was a life-saving pill. This toppled his understanding of the world. Chen Qigu's heart could not help but be suspicious. He felt that Chu Mu was lying. However, he immediately overturned this idea. Was it really like what Chu Mu had said? Could the authenticity of the elixir be determined after a more in-depth and professional appraisal? Thinking quickly, Chen Qigu nodded his head and stood up. Looking around, he announced the final winner. This year's pill refining competition has come to an end. The winner of the finals is... Immediately, the people from the Heavenly Dan building and the small Dan house became nervous. This was related to their interests and even their fate. They could not remain calm. The middle-aged alchemist from the Heavenly Pill building also had an expression on his paralyzed face. He was somewhat confident but also somewhat nervous. He represented the Heavenly Pill building, and he was also one of the few peak alchemy grandmasters in the Heavenly Pill building. He represented the interests and image of the Heavenly Pill building, and when he came here, the order given to him by the higher-ups of the Heavenly Pill building was that he could only win and not lose. The desolate border city was just a low-level city. To be honest, the benefits generated by the Heavenly Pill building here were insignificant to the entire Heavenly Pill building. Even if they gave up 50% of the market, it wouldn't have much of an impact. It was mainly a matter of prestige. At least, that was what the people of the Heavenly Pill building thought. The final moment had arrived. Chen Qigu's lips moved and his voice came out. The first place is Chu Mu of the small Dan house. As soon as these words came out, Nalan Fenghua and the others were completely stunned. Their thoughts suddenly stopped and they couldn't react. Happiness came so suddenly, as if it was expected, but also unexpected. The man from the Heavenly Pill building suddenly collapsed on his chair, as if his spine had been pulled out. His whole body was soft and powerless. The middle-aged alchemist's face suddenly changed. He lost his mind and shouted, "This is impossible! I don't accept this. I'm a peak alchemy grandmaster, and he's just a nobody. How could he get first place? Moreover, the so-called yang reversion pill hasn't been confirmed at all, so it can't be counted." Chen Qigu's face suddenly became cold. He was a fair person, and at the same time, he was also a grandmaster. He had his own bearing and dignity. If he was being accused of cheating for personal gain, he would feel ashamed and uneasy. However, facts were facts, and he couldn't be questioned. This was authority. However, the middle-aged alchemist of the Heavenly Pill Building showed signs of losing his mind at this time. He didn't notice Chen Qigu's expression and cold tone at all. "The first place should belong to me," the middle-aged alchemist continued to shout. Chen Qigu didn't say anything. He stared coldly at the middle-aged alchemist, and finally, the latter felt a chill. He couldn't help but shiver, as if a basin of ice water had been poured over him. He quickly woke up, and his heart was filled with fear. His forehead was oozing with cold sweat. He actually questioned an alchemy grandmaster in front of so many people. Moreover, he was an elder of the Alchemist Alliance. Even if he was at the peak alchemy grandmaster, and was only a step away from becoming a grandmaster, he couldn't be sure that he could become a grandmaster. There should be a lot of people who have the same idea as you. Chen Qigu's gaze swept across the crowd, and he slowly said in an extremely dignified manner, "I still can't determine the specific effects of this yang reversion pill. Whether it is as magical as Chu Mu said, I still need more in-depth appraisal. However, with my knowledge and experience, and my reputation as a guarantee, this is not a fake pill, but a real pill. Moreover, it is a 9th grade pill. As for the reason for getting first place, it is very simple. The quality of this yang reversion pill is at the peak of excellent grade, and half a step away from flawless grade. It is much higher than your red marrow pill." No one said anything. Chen Qigu used his reputation as a grandmaster as a guarantee. If anyone questioned him again, they would be making things difficult for him. If the Heavenly Pill Building has any doubts, you can report it to the Alchemist Alliance. I will also bring the yang reversion pill back for a deeper appraisal. If I am unjust, the Alchemist Alliance will naturally execute me," Chen Qigu finally said. At this point, the alchemy competition held by the Heavenly Pill Building came to an end. The first place winner was the alchemist of the small pill house, Chu Mu. As a bet, under Chen Qigu's witness, the small pill house obtained 50% of the alchemy market in the border city. In fact, this was a relatively empty number. How could it be considered 50%? It was difficult to determine. It could only be said that the small pill house had become famous in the border city and had formed a legitimate competition with the Heavenly Pill Building. They had their own alchemy market. For Nalan Fenghua, this was already enough. In addition to the bet, there was also the reward for the first place. In fact, it was not much, just 3 alchemy recipes. One was a 4th-grade alchemy recipe, one was a 5th-grade alchemy recipe, and one was a 6th-grade alchemy recipe. For Chu Mu and the small pill house, this was indeed a good reward. Alchemy recipes were hard to come by. Compared to the excitement of the small pill house, the Heavenly Pill Building's side was completely opposite. They all looked like frosted eggplants, listless and gloomy. Especially the middle-aged alchemist, his eyes were lifeless. He looked like he had no hope in life, so he might as well die. The competition was over, and those who should leave left. The young alchemist originally planned to cause trouble for Chu Mu, but after being dissuaded, he thought it through and gave up on the idea of causing trouble for Chu Mu. Otherwise, he would find out how terrible the consequences of causing trouble for Chu Mu were. After the people of the small pill house left, the discussion about the alchemy competition in the border city was very heated. It had become the hottest topic, And the small pill house's signboard was even louder. It could be imagined that the business of the small pill house would flourish with each passing day. Winning first place was within Chu Mu's expectations, so he was not too excited. After returning to the small pill house, Chu Mu began to study the 3 alchemy recipes in his hand. He started from the lowest 4th grade alchemy recipe all the way to the 6th grade alchemy recipe. Then, he told Nalan Fenghua to purchase the corresponding ingredients, as he was preparing to refine pills. Nalan Fenghua was grateful to Chu Mu from the bottom of her heart. Without Chu Mu, the small pill house would not have been able to survive. She would have to return to her family and accept the arrangements she was unwilling to make. It had to be said that her kindness was rewarded, even though she did not have such thoughts. Qin Yang was also very excited. Chu Mu was an alchemy grandmaster, at least, because he had defeated the alchemy grandmaster of the heavenly pill building. Moreover, he had refined a kind of pill that even the Alchemist Union's elder, Chen Chigu, did not recognize. As if he was the one who had won the honor, Qin Yang felt the same way and was extremely excited. However, Chu Mu was calm and indifferent, as if he was not the one who had won first place, and it had nothing to do with him. This kind of state of mind immediately made Qin Yang admire him. This was a true expert, a true grandmaster's bearing. There were many people in the heavenly pill building, but it was completely silent. Each of them looked gloomy, as if they had lost interest in life. They had actually lost. One had to know that in order to hold this alchemy competition, the heavenly pill building had made a lot of preparations and paid a lot of price. The price could not be mentioned because it would not affect their foundation, but their reputation had taken a hit. After the competition, the paralyzed middle-aged alchemist from the heavenly pill building took a short break and left the border city, returning to the headquarters of the heavenly pill building. He had lost, so naturally, he had to go back to accept the punishment. "What should we do now?" an elder asked. "Wait." Yanlai spat out a word. In the current situation, there was no other way but to wait. The decision could only be made by the headquarters of the heavenly pill building. Chu Mu was an expert, a true expert, and could not be easily provoked. At the same time, he had extremely high attainments in alchemy. His origin could not be found, as if he had appeared out of thin air. He was very mysterious, so they had to be vigilant. Now, there was an elder of the Alchemist Alliance as the referee. If the heavenly pill building went back on their word, Chen Chigu would definitely feel that his authority was being challenged, which was not a good thing for the heavenly pill building. Yanlai felt that the best way was to let this matter go, so as to avoid any more trouble. However, he did not know what the headquarters would decide, and it was not something he could interfere with. He could only wait. While the heavenly pill building was waiting dejectedly, the small pill house welcomed an unexpected guest, which made Nalan Fenghua and the others excited. Chapter 766. May I know where you're from? In the alchemy room of the small elixir house, Chen Chigu looked around the simple room and asked casually. That's right, the unexpected guest was one of the elders of the Alchemist Union, the Phantom Hand Alchemist Grandmaster, Chen Chigu. Chen Chigu's visit was an honor for the small elixir house, but it was not out of Chu Mu's expectations. The small elixir house was not big, and Chen Chigu did not want anyone else to be around when he saw Chu Mu. Therefore, the two of them went straight to the alchemy room. The environment of the alchemy room shocked Chen Chigu. If this alchemy room was compared to his alchemy room, it would be like comparing a simple toilet to a mansion. It was hard to imagine that an alchemist who could refine a 9th-grade elixir would refine in such a simple environment. Chen Chigu had an indescribable feeling in his heart. There are some things that are better left vague than clear. Chu Mu answered faintly, which was equivalent to answering Chen Chigu's question. Should he tell him that he came from the immemorial world? That was obviously not the right way to do it. Not getting a satisfactory answer, Chen Chigu turned around and stared at Chu Mu, as if he wanted to see through Chu Mu. He was an Origin Realm swordsman and an alchemist grandmaster. His spiritual power was stronger than other Origin Realm swordsmen of the same level. Although he did not deliberately release it, there was still a pressure coming from it. However, Chu Mu didn't seem to feel anything at all, and remained calm and collected. Chen Shigu could not see through him, and the more he looked, the more mysterious he became. Chen Shigu retracted his gaze and looked at the bronze alchemy furnace. He said again, "All right, since you won't tell me where you're from, you can at least tell me who your master is." "I don't have a master," Chu Mu said. This answer made Chen Shigu's expression change, but it was soon replaced with joy. "Could it be that your alchemy skills were self-taught?" Chen Shigu asked with joy. "You can say that," Chu Mu answered ambiguously. Naturally, he would not say that he had obtained the inheritance of a grandmaster. If that was the case, Chen Shigu might be tempted and it would be unfavorable for him. Chen Shigu's heart was filled with joy, and he had an impulse to immediately ask Chu Mu to be his disciple. However, he resisted this impulse. He still didn't understand enough, and needed more before he could make a decision. "Although I haven't appraised the yang reversion pill in depth, my intuition tells me that what you said is true," Chen Shigu said and looked at Chu Mu again. "It seems that other than your own learning, you should have also obtained some fortuitous encounters." "You can say that," Chu Mu replied. "There was nothing strange about some fortuitous encounters. Your foundation is very solid. It's something I've never seen before." Chen Shigu said, "Have you ever thought about learning more advanced alchemy techniques? Because in alchemy, it's not enough to have a solid foundation. The higher the level of the pill, the higher the requirements. At that time, the basic techniques can't meet the needs of alchemy." Chu Mu also understood this point. In fact, without the help of spiritual consciousness, the yang reversion pill might not be refined. Even if it was refined, it might only be of rough quality. "Elder Chen is right, but I still have to practice the basic techniques more skillfully first," Chu Mu said. Chen Shigu couldn't help but feel a little speechless. His words unconsciously revealed some information, hoping that Chu Mu would be smart enough to take the initiative. He didn't expect that Chu Mu didn't mention it at all. Did he, a grandmaster, have to take the initiative to ask Chu Mu to be his disciple? Well, he still needed to know more and determine his character. Then, Chen Shigu talked about other topics, trying to understand Chu Mu's character. Chen Shigu wasn't young. Although he looked 70 or 80 years old, he was actually 80 or 90 years old. He had rich experience and had his own way of judging people. Probing with words, inadvertently, would always make people reveal their true nature, no matter how good they were at disguising themselves. It was just that, after a casual probing, Chen Shigu was even more speechless. The feeling that Chu Mu gave Chen Shigu was that he was absolutely not a sophisticated person. He knew this through conversation, but he was still stubborn. Chu Mu's answers were often very simple and direct. It sounded like he had answered every question, but it was not the main point. It seemed clear, but after thinking carefully, it wasn't clear. It was like scratching an itch through a layer of cotton clothes. Chen Shigu was not convinced. He was a person who had lived for almost 100 years, but he couldn't do anything to a young man. It would be embarrassing if this were to spread out. The conversation continued, talking about all sorts of things. He immediately discovered that Chu Mu didn't seem to know much about the outside world, that is, Heaven Wasteland domain. Slowly, an image formed in Chen Shigu's heart. He had a cold personality and was not very shrewd. He had had some fortuitous encounters in the past and was very hard-working. He rarely went out and spent almost all of his time on alchemy. He was very obsessed with the path of alchemy and was very stubborn. He had his own persistence. When this image appeared, Chen Shigu seemed to have a deeper impression of Chu Mu, as if hypnotized. He suddenly became more and more satisfied with Chu Mu. His foundation was solid, he wasn't an evil person, he was hard-working, and had his own persistence. He was an excellent candidate for a disciple. Chu Mu, on the other hand, was thinking. His expression was very calm, but his heart was very excited, like a surging tide. Heaven Wasteland Palace, he heard this word. Yes, this word was said by Chen Shigu. When Chen Shigu was testing Chu Mu, he casually said it. Before that, when Chu Mu, Nailan Fenghua, Qin Yang and the others were talking, he had also inadvertently mentioned the Heaven Wasteland Palace, but they did not have any reaction, indicating that they had not heard of this place. At that time, Chu Mu felt that perhaps their level was not high enough, so they did not know. Because he instinctively felt that Heaven Wasteland Domain and the Heaven Wasteland Palace must be connected. Now, hearing it from Chen Shigu's mouth and his tone, Chu Mu felt heartfelt excitement. He couldn't always stay in Heaven Wasteland Domain. He had to go back to the ancient world, and the clues to go back were obviously in the Heaven Wasteland Palace. I seem to have heard of the Heaven Wasteland Palace before. Where is it? Chu Mu suddenly said. The Heaven Wasteland Palace is the most mysterious place in Heaven Wasteland Domain, and also the most powerful place. Even I can't go there, so I don't know where it is. Chen Shigu was thinking about how to make Chu Mu take the initiative to ask to be his disciple. Hearing Chu Mu's words, he casually replied, "But the Heaven Wasteland Palace will open once every 100 years to recruit talented disciples. As far as I know, that is the way to enter the Heaven Wasteland Palace. There may be other ways, but I don't know." Chu Mu nodded slightly. "Elder Chen, do you know how long it will be until the next opening of the Heaven Wasteland Palace?" Chu Mu asked again. "The next opening? 3 years. No, let me count. About 2 years, I'm not sure about the specific date." Chen Shigu casually said, then immediately reacted. "Do you plan to participate in the centennial election of the Heaven Wasteland Palace?" "I plan to," Chu Mu said. "How old are you this year?" Chen Shigu suddenly asked, sizing up Chu Mu. "Over 30 years old." Chu Mu was taken aback. How old? Ever since he came to this world, he really had not thought about this, but after a rough calculation, he was sure that his age was already over 30 years old. As for over 30 years old, he still had to calculate more clearly. Over 30. Chen Shigu looked at Chu Mu, shaking his head. "Then you have no hope. The centennial election of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, the first requirement is that you cannot be over 30 years old." Chu Mu was taken aback. Could not be over 30 years old, then did that mean he had no hope? No, the time had not come, everything was unknown. No matter what, he was someone who had obtained the Heaven Wasteland Sword token. Perhaps he would not be restricted by the age limit. However, at present, he could not be sure. Everything could only wait until the Heaven Wasteland Palace opens again. The path of the Heaven Wasteland Palace, I advise you not to have any hope, because it is unrealistic. Chen Shigu sighed, shaking his head as he spoke to Chu Mu. Immediately, his eyes flashed with excitement. "Your foundation in alchemy is very solid, even I cannot compare to it. Your talent in alchemy is also not bad. Have you ever thought about going further on the path of alchemy and becoming a respected grandmaster?" "I'll take one step at a time," Chu Mu said. He did not intend to go far on the path of alchemy, nor would he spend too much energy on it. At present, it was just a stopgap measure. Chu Mu's answer made Chen Shigu, who was full of expectations, almost vomit blood. No ambition at all. Resisting the urge to scold him, Chen Shigu patiently continued, "You have to know that alchemists are very precious, and their status is also very high. What's more, I can see that you are very passionate about alchemy." Chen Shigu said, "You have to know that the path of alchemy is broad and profound. If you rely on your own exploration, you may have some gains in the beginning, but later on, if you want to reach a higher realm, it will be very difficult. If you have someone to guide you, everything will be different. I suggest that you find a good master. It is not impossible for you to become a grandmaster in the future. Chen Qigu said, I am an elder of the Alchemist Alliance. There are many grandmasters in our Alchemist Alliance. I can recommend you to one. Although he said that, Chen Qigu was thinking in his heart that Chu Mu taking the initiative to ask him to be his master, was it normal? Many thanks for Elder's good intentions, but my ambition does not lie here. Chu Mu also understood the other party's meaning. If he was really someone who wholeheartedly wanted to walk down the path of alchemy to the end, perhaps he would consider Chen Qigu's word. But then again, even if Chu Mu wanted to walk down the path of alchemy to the end, he would not worship Chen Qigu as his master. Chen Qigu was just a mere alchemy grandmaster. As someone who had the inheritance of an alchemy grandmaster, Chu Mu really did not put him in his eyes. If the other party was an alchemy grandmaster, then it would be more acceptable. Chu Mu's answer caused Chen Qigu's face to change greatly. A burst of anger rushed out from the depths of his heart, rushing straight to his head. His face turned red from anger. Chapter 767. Chen Qigu left the small elixir house angrily, scaring Nailan Fenghua, Qin Yang and the rest. He wanted to take me in as a disciple, but I rejected him. Chu Mu's simple explanation caused Nailan Fenghua and the others to be stunned. Then, their expressions greatly changed. Their hearts were extremely complicated and they couldn't describe their feelings. Chen Qigu was a grandmaster after all. He had his own magnanimity and did not take revenge on Chu Mu for rejecting him. However, he took away 2 yang reversion pills for research purposes. Chen Qigu also sent some people to deliver some low and middle-grade desolate stones. The 3rd pill became the small elixir house's treasure pill. In fact, a rank 9 pill was not qualified to be a treasure pill. However, the small elixir house was not big enough and the yang reversion pill was quite miraculous, so it temporarily became a treasure pill. Due to various conditions, the small elixir house rented a bigger shop with 2 floors. The first floor was 3 times the size of the original. In terms of scale, it expanded by a lot. Of course, it also cost a lot of desolate coins. Fortunately, Chen Qigu had used the desolate stones to buy the 2 yang reversion pills. Chu Mu took out most of the desolate stones to let Nailan Fenghua buy more herbs. Taking advantage of the fact that the alchemy competition had just ended and the small elixir house was in the limelight, it was the best time to develop. Large quantities of pills were necessary. The new shop was located on one of the main streets of Desolate City. It was bustling with people and the location was very good. The first floor of the new shop was divided into half and refurbished as an alchemy room. The alchemy room had to be insulated and soundproof. It had to be able to withstand high temperatures and so on. Once the door was closed, it would be sealed. The alchemy room had shelves for herbs and various porcelain bottles. There were also 4 bronze alchemy furnaces. The 4 bronze alchemy furnaces were requested by Chu Mu. His purpose was to refine more pills. The development of the small elixir house could not only rely on flawless pills. They had to have normal and excellent quality pills and even more. Qin Yang was in charge of 1 alchemy furnace, which was used to refine rank 1 to rank 3 pills. He just had to do his best. The rank 1, rank 2 and rank 3 pills that he refined had a 30% chance of being of excellent quality. The rest were all normal quality. As for Chu Mu, he was in charge of the 3 pill furnaces. At first, Qin Yang was extremely shocked, but later on, he became numb to it. One of the furnaces was used to refine 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade medicinal pills of excellent quality. Another furnace was used to refine 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade medicinal pills of flawless quality. The 3rd furnace was used to refine 4th grade to 6th grade medicinal pills. Every day, the number of pills Chu Mu refined was shocking. But if he took them all out to sell, they would all be sold out. Every day, the little pill pavilion made a huge profit. Fortunately, Nailan Fenghua didn't blindly sell them. She kept half of the daily production and sold the other half. Correspondingly, the Heavenly Pill Building also made a move. To a certain extent, they lowered the price of the pills and competed with the small pill house. They did not use any other improper methods to suppress the small pill house. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. 5 months ago, the small pill pavilion had made a huge profit and bought the shop, officially becoming the small pill pavilion's property. After that, they made profits every day. In addition to the original workers, they hired 2 more. Otherwise, they would be too busy. The first floor of the small pill house sold first-grade to sixth-grade medicinal pills. As for the second floor, in addition to the inner hall, it was also used to sell 7th-grade to 9th-grade medicinal pills. But now, the small pill house didn't have any medicinal pills above 7th grade, so it was temporarily shelved. 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade medicinal pills. In addition to the original energy pill, golden injury pill, and blood replenishing pill, there were also 3 or 4 other varieties. After half a year, Qin Yang's alchemy skills had improved. When refining first-grade medicinal pills, there was a 70% chance of reaching excellent quality. Second-grade medicinal pills had a 60% chance of reaching excellent quality. Third-grade medicinal pills had a 50% chance of reaching excellent quality. Fourth-grade medicinal pills had a 30% chance of reaching excellent quality. He could barely refine 5th-grade medicinal pills. This kind of progress was unimaginable for Qin Yang. As for Chu Mu, his improvement was indiscernible, but he himself knew how great his improvement was. If he had the pill recipe, he could easily concoct a 10th-rank pill. Even if it was a human-rank pill, he could still concoct it. The 4 bronze pill furnaces were all replaced with a higher-grade refined copper pill furnace. The ink charcoal was also replaced with a higher-grade refined ink charcoal. It helped a little more with alchemy. The number of pills he could refine per day had increased by 10%. The small pill house also had a lot of medicinal pills in stock. In this half a year, Chu Mu did not give up on training. His sword qi had a breakthrough and reached the beginning of the qi transformation realm. However, the purity of his sword qi was so high that even a peak qi C realm swordsman would feel ashamed. In addition, his mental powers activity had greatly increased. With each attack, the sword intense Godseal blood curse had been weakened 2 to 3 times faster. According to the current situation, it would take 3 to 4 years for the sword intense Godseal blood curse to dissipate. Once the sword intense Godseal blood curse disappeared, Chu Mu would be able to use his sword intent. At that time, he would be able to combine his sword intent with his mental power to break the Gold Profound's Godseal blood curse. If it was the complete Godseal blood curse, Chu Mu wouldn't have a chance. But this was the drawback of an incomplete Godseal blood curse. As he continued to refine pills, his mental power's activity would continue to increase, and the Godseal blood curse would weaken even more. The small pill house's 1st grade to 6th grade medicinal pills took up more than half of the desolate city's market. Even if the Heavenly Pill House lowered their prices, they couldn't stop it. The Heavenly Pill House simply couldn't sell flawless grade medicinal pills. Even if an alchemy grandmaster were to refine it, it would be difficult to refine a large number of flawless grade elixirs, unless it was an alchemy grandmaster. However, there was only one alchemy grandmaster in the Heavenly Elixir building. It was impossible for him to refine grade 1 to grade 6 elixirs. Fortunately, the Heavenly Pill House could still sell 7th grade to 9th grade medicinal pills. In this area, the small pill house was in a blank state. But if the small pill house began to involve 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade medicinal pills, the Heavenly Pill House's interests would be greatly impacted. Therefore, in order to prevent this from happening, the Heavenly Pill House prohibited the circulation of any 7th grade and above medicinal pill formulas. They also purchased 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade medicinal pill formulas in advance, cutting off the possibility of the small pill house obtaining 7th grade and above medicinal pill formulas in the desolate city. The small pill house didn't care about this. At present, it was indeed not suitable to open up the market for 7th grade and above medicinal pills. They would first stabilize the market for 6th grade medicinal pills before making any plans. The heavenly pill house master Yen Lai knew Chu Mu's strength and couldn't be provoked. Therefore, although there was competition between the small pill house and the heavenly pill house, there was peace. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. It had been more than a year since Chu Mu came to Heaven Wasteland Domain. According to Chen Chigu, there should still be a year or more before the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace's centennial election. At that time, Chen Chigu would inform Chu Mu in advance. Chu Mu had a good impression of this pill master who wanted to take him in as a disciple. If there was a chance in the future, he didn't mind giving Chen Chigu some pointers. Chu Mu was not boasting. The current him, in terms of attainments in pill refining, was not below Chen Chigu's. In the future, he would certainly be able to reach a higher level. Moreover, he had the inheritance of a great grandmaster in his mind. Taking out a little would be enough for Chen Chigu to comprehend for a long time. In this half a year, everything went on as usual. However, Qin Yang's pill refining skills had improved further. He could safely refine 5th grade medicinal pills of ordinary quality. Occasionally, he would perform extremely well and refine 5th grade medicinal pills of excellent quality. As for 6th grade medicinal pills, there was no hope at the moment. The business of the small pill house gradually stabilized. After all, the border city was only a low-level city. The number of swordsmen inside was limited, and there would not be many swordsmen from outside. Therefore, when the sales of medicinal pills reached a certain level, it could not continue to increase. Even so, the daily profits of the small pill house were extremely high. In Chu Mu's spatial ring, there were a large number of middle and lower grade desolate stones. This was his share. Chu Mu's sword chi cultivation had increased to the initial chi transformation realm. This was because he had done his best to suppress the increase of sword chi. He had constantly tempered the sword chi over and over again, making the sword chi incomparably pure. His hidden edge art had restrained all sword chi fluctuations. In the eyes of others, he did not have the slightest sword chi cultivation. However, no one cared because Chu Mu had displayed superb pill refining skills. Strength and whatnot were secondary. During this period, something more important happened. An elder from the Heavenly Pill House's headquarters came to the border city to meet with Chu Mu. He promised Chu Mu all kinds of benefits and wanted to recruit Chu Mu to the Heavenly Pill House to become a professional pill master. Chu Mu refused without hesitation and did not explain. His forcefulness caused the elder's expression to change greatly. Just as he was about to flare up, Chu Mu's body emitted a tyrannical aura that crushed his body. That terrifying sword pressure almost suffocated him. One had to know that this elder's cultivation had reached the origin realm. It was Deshang. At this point, the Heavenly Pill House could finally confirm that Chu Mu's cultivation was at least in the complete origin realm. To have such a cultivation at such a young age and to have such exquisite pill refining skills, he definitely had an extraordinary background. He might even be a genius disciple from a powerful force in some huge city. The Heavenly Pill House further implemented the strategy of not offending Chu Mu. In another year or so, it should be the Heaven Wasteland Earth Palace's centennial election. At that time I will leave. At that time, Qin Yang will probably only be able to refine grade 6 pills. In the room, Chu Mu, who had finished cultivating, thought to himself, from now on, the development of the small pill house will depend on Qin Yang and Naylan Fenghua. Since that's the case, I won't touch grade 7 pills and above. With the pill recipe, he could refine grade 7 pills and above. At that time, the business of the small pill house would definitely be better. However, Chu Mu would have to leave sooner or later. Once he left, the small pill house would have no grade 7 pills and above to sell. It would be a blow to their reputation. It would be better to let nature take its course. Even if there were grade 7 pills and above, they would be refined by Qin. However, that would be many years later. The next day, a few people came to the small pill house. When one of them reported his name, Naylan Fenghua's expression suddenly changed. Chapter 768. Yuan Wutian was the second young master of the Yuan family, which was one of the top 5 forces in the proud barren city. He was 25 years old and had completed the Qi transformation realm. His cultivation talent was average, and he was fond of beauties. He already had several wives and concubines, and often hung around in brothels with a bunch of friends. He was a typical playboy. Once, when Yuan Wutian saw Naylan Fenghua in the barren fire city, he thought of taking her in as a concubine and sent someone to propose marriage to the Naylan family. Compared to the Yuan family, the Naylan family was too weak. Yuan Wutian also promised that if Naylan Fenghua married him as a concubine, he would promote the development of the Naylan family and establish a foothold in the proud barren city. The Naylan family was naturally overjoyed. They did not care about Naylan Fenghua's opinion at all, and directly wanted to marry Naylan Fenghua to Yuan Wutian as a concubine, saying that everything was for the family. Naylan Fenghua did not agree, and threatened to kill herself. Finally, an elder of the Naylan family proposed to give Naylan Fenghua a chance, which was to develop the small Dan pavilion in the barren city and expand the Dan market in the barren city. As long as Naylan Fenghua could do it, the family would not force her to marry Yuan Wutian. Naylan Fenghua agreed. This was her resistance. She thought that it would end sadly, but Chu Mu brought her hope. This was the reason why Naylan Fenghua came to the barren city. The maid Xiao Huan quickly told Chu Mu in the shortest possible words. The whole process only took a dozen breaths. Naylan Fenghua did not expect that Yuan Wutian would come to the barren city and find the small Dan pavilion. Of course, Yuan Wutian came for Naylan Fenghua, accompanied by his servant, an elder, and 4 sword guards. Yuan Wutian's cultivation was at the beginning of the Qi realm, and his aura was not stable. Obviously, he had just broken through, and with the help of the Dan, his servant was in his 20s, and was at the initial Qi transformation realm. The other 4 sword guards were at the 6th revolution of the 9th revolution realm. The elder's aura was restrained, and he looked very ordinary. However, Chu Mu could tell that he was at the initial Qi realm. As expected of a clan from a high-class city, they actually had a minor completion origin realm expert as their personal guard. Sister Fenghua, I haven't seen you for more than a year. You've become even more beautiful. Yuan Wutian had a frivolous smile on his face as he looked at Naylan Fenghua. He strode over and reached out to touch Naylan Fenghua's face. Naylan Fenghua's expression turned cold. She hurriedly took 2 steps back, her eyes cold. Young Master Yuan, please conduct yourself with dignity. Yuan Wutian's guards and the old man's servant didn't stop his frivolous behavior because they knew their young master's character. Sister Fenghua, you'll be mine sooner or later. We're just getting closer in advance. Yuan Wutian chuckled and took another step closer. The maid, Xiao Huan, flashed in front of Naylan Fenghua and Yuan Wutian, glaring at Yuan Wutian. Go away. Yuan Wutian was startled at first, but then he shouted angrily. His powerful aura burst out and hit Xiao Huan. Xiao Huan felt as if he was going to be cut into pieces. His face turned pale and his body trembled, but he gritted his teeth and held on. If you don't go away, you'll die, Yuan Wutian said angrily. His murderous aura burst out. Xiao Huan couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. She fell softly and was caught by Naylan Fenghua. It happened so fast that Naylan he didn't have time to react. Young Master Yuan, you're not welcome here. Get out now. Naylan Fenghua was completely angry, like a lioness. Get out? Who dares to kick me out? Yuan Wutian said arrogantly because he had the right to be arrogant. And in the small elixir house, no one could kick him out. At least, that was what everyone thought. Yuan Wutian's 4 guards emitted a powerful aura, which made Nalan Fenghua's face change drastically. Their aura was not weaker than Nalan He's. Although Nalan He's cultivation was stronger than the 4 guards, his cultivation method was not as good as theirs. "Close the door," Yuan Wutian said. His servant immediately moved to close the door. At this time, Chu Mu knew that he couldn't sit idly by. "Wait!" A calm voice sounded, and Chu Mu came from the side. "Get lost." Yuan Wutian turned his head to look at Chu Mu. When he found that Chu Mu didn't have the slightest fluctuation of sword qi, a violent and fierce aura rushed towards him. His eyes flashed and he roared at the same time. Nalan Fenghua and the others' faces changed drastically. Nalan He moved and appeared in front of Chu Mu, blocking the impact of Yuan Wutian's aura. Chu Mu was a very important person in the small elixir house. They couldn't afford to lose him. Nalan He's cultivation was in the 7th transformation of the 9th transformation realm, which was many times stronger than Yuan Wutian. The old man, who had been motionless like an ordinary person, suddenly took a step forward. His body seemed to have increased tenfold in an instant. His whole person was like a sword mountain crushing down. An incomparably strong aura mixed with traces of sword will cut through everything. It was like a mountain made of countless sharp swords, blasting towards Nalan He. Nalan He's body trembled and his cheeks turned red. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura suddenly dropped. If it weren't for his strong will, he would have fallen down. But the old man's aura rushed over again. If Nalan He retreated, he wouldn't be injured again, but Chu Mu would. However, Chu Mu was very important. Nalan He gritted his teeth and forcibly raised his aura to resist the old man's aura again. In an instant, Nalan He's aura collapsed, and the terrifying aura strengthened. As long as it came into contact, Nalan He would definitely be injured again. His heart demon would destroy his foundation, and it would be difficult for him to advance in his life. In the blink of an eye, Nalan He clenched his teeth and was about to bear the terrifying momentum. He felt his body become light as if he had turned into a feather and was lifted from behind. He flew lightly to the side and landed safely. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a figure taking a step forward and standing in his original position. Although it was just from the corner of his eye, Nalan He could still recognize that it was Chu Mu. Nalan Fenghua and the others also saw this scene. Before they could react, the old man's terrifying aura had already bombarded Chu Mu's body. Nalan Fenghua and the others could only feel despair and despair filling their hearts. Chu Mu didn't have any sword qi cultivation, but the old man was able to injure him with his aura. He was definitely an Origin Realm warrior. How could someone without cultivation resist the aura of such a powerful warrior? There was no doubt that he would die. In desperation, Nalan Fenghua spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body was on the verge of collapse, and he felt dizzy. How is this possible? A cry of surprise came from Yuan Wutian. It was like a duck that had been stabbed in the butt with a mace. It woke everyone up, and they were all dumbfounded. Chu Mu was safe and sound, and his expression didn't change. The old man frowned, and his terrifying aura surged out again. The sword pressure vaguely transformed into a giant sword, and it slashed down from the sky. It was as if even a mountain would be split in half. Exclamations came from Nalan Fenghua and the others, and their eyes were filled with horror. Chu Mu only glanced at the illusory giant sword. As it slashed down, an even more terrifying sharpness gushed out from Chu Mu's body. It was like a volcano that had been dormant for thousands of years, and after accumulating power for thousands of years, it erupted in an instant. The sky darkened and it was earth-shattering. It was earth-shattering and it was terrifying. The sword will was sealed, but the understanding of the sword was still there. The sword momentum Chu Mu used was extremely terrifying. Combined with his own aura, it formed a sword pressure. In an instant, it directly shattered the illusory giant's sword and slashed down. Faster than the speed of thought, everyone's consciousness was still stuck in the moment when the illusory giant's sword slashed down. They heard a thunder-like muffled groan, and it woke them up. Suddenly, they were all horrified to see that the arrogant Origin Realm warrior had turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was trembling uncontrollably. Yuan Wutian and his friends were all stunned. It was as if their brains were broken. They stared blankly at the old man who was trembling on the ground. "Get lost." Chu Mu said this word in an indifferent tone. It woke Yuan Wutian and the others up. They were all filled with fear, and they scrambled out of the small elixir house. The old man also struggled to get up and staggered out of the small elixir house. Yuan Wutian looked back at the small elixir house, and when he saw Chu Mu, his whole body trembled. He quickly turned around and strode away. Nalan Fenghua and the others acted as if it was the first time they had seen Chu Mu. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, shock, and deep reverence. Once his aura was released, it was earth-shattering. In an instant, an Origin Realm warrior was injured, and Yuan Wutian and the others were forced to flee in panic. Was this really the alchemist Chu Mu that they knew? The one who did not have sword aura? Take the elixir. Chu Mu took out the elixir and threw it to Xiao Huan. He turned around and returned to the alchemy room, leaving behind a floor full of shock. Not long after, Nalan Fenghua entered the alchemy room and thanked Chu Mu. Chu Mu smiled and said that it was nothing. All kinds of questions emerged in Nalan Fenghua's mind. If Chu Mu had hidden his cultivation from the beginning, then why did he ask for a cultivation method from her? Moreover, why did he faint on the side of the road and was saved by her? Also, how strong was Chu Mu's cultivation? Lastly, where did Chu Mu come from? Why did he have such amazing alchemy skills, and at the same time, the strength of an Origin Realm warrior? Questions after questions circled in Nalan Fenghua's mind, making it impossible for her to calm down. She had an impulse to ask Chu Mu, to dig out all of Chu Mu's secrets. However, Nalan Fenghua suppressed this impulse. She was a smart woman and knew what to ask and what not to ask. Since Chu Mu did not want others to know his strength, he naturally had his reasons. Unknowingly, Chu Mu's impression in Nalan Fenghua's mind deepened, and some changes occurred. Chapter 769. Although it was rare for an alchemist to be in the Origin Realm, it wasn't rare. However, a young man in his 20s not only had the attainment to refine level 9 pills, but also had the cultivation of the Origin Realm. This was extremely shocking. From now on, the people of the small elixir house could no longer treat Chu Mu as a noble alchemist. This was because he was also a powerful warrior with the cultivation of the Origin Realm. No matter what, this was a good thing for the small elixir house. Nalan Fenghua suddenly understood why the Heavenly Elixir House only lowered their prices to compete with the small elixir house and did not use any other methods to suppress them. This should be due to Chu Mu's contribution. "Miss, you're daydreaming again," the maid Xiao Huan teased. She rolled her eyes and asked, "Are you thinking about someone?" "Shut up." Nalan Fenghua glared at Xiao Huan and blushed. "I'm just thinking about Chu Mu's background. I didn't say his name." "How do you know that I'm talking about Chu Mu?" Xiao Huan mumbled, causing Nalan Fenghua's face to turn even redder. If you continue, I'll hit you." Nalan Fenghua acted like a little girl and raised her hand, pretending to hit Xiao Huan. I won't do it anymore. I won't do it anymore. Miss, please forgive me." Xiao Huan was very cooperative. She quickly knelt down and begged while trembling. Pfft. Nalan Fenghua was amused by Xiao Huan's attitude. It had been a long time since she was so relaxed. It was also the first time she laughed so happily in the past 2 years. "All right, get up." Xiao Huan stood up with a smile and patted the dust off her knees. Her expression became serious as she said, "Master Chu is so young, but he has such superb alchemy skills that even masters want to take him as their disciple. Moreover, he has the strength of the origin realm. No matter how you look at it, he is a rare genius. Miss, you should act when you're tempted. If you miss it, you won't get another chance. Nalan Fenghua's face was still red. She glared at Xiao Huan and frowned slightly, revealing a worried expression. The Yuan clan is a clan in a high-class city. There are many origin realm experts in the clan. Although Yuan Wutian is a spoiled brat, he is the second young master of the Yuan clan. He has a high position. With his character, he won't let this go. He will definitely think of a way to deal with Master Chu. Miss, don't worry. Grandmaster Chu is so powerful. It won't be that easy to deal with him. Xiao Huan wasn't worried. In terms of knowledge, she was only a maid. She couldn't compare with Nalan Fenghua. Nalan Fenghua shook her head and didn't say anything else. Instead, she quickly walked out to find Chu Mu and explain her worries. Don't worry. Chu Mu faintly smiled and said, combining everything he had, as long as it wasn't a sword practitioner above the 6th rank or a divine condensation realm sword practitioner, it was almost impossible to kill him, unless he was surrounded by several sword practitioners of the 6th rank. Perhaps there were 6th revolution sword artists in the Yuan clan, but there shouldn't be many of them. Moreover, Chu Mu had the mutated savage beast battle pet, Bawang. Once it was summoned, Bawang's killing power would be extremely frightening. Ordinary 6th revolution sword artists wouldn't have any chance to fight back in front of Bawang. As usual, during the day, Chu Mu would concoct pills in the small pellet house. At night, he would leave the small pellet house and return to his room to cultivate. Tonight, because of some reasons, Chu Mu didn't leave the small pellet house until late at night. Knowing that Chu Mu was a powerful expert, Nalan Fenghua didn't let her guards continue to follow Chu Mu. Even if there was any danger, her guards would only be a burden to Chu Mu. Tonight there was moonlight. The hazy moonlight sprinkled down, adding a thin layer of white to the dark world. Occasionally, a dog's bark would come from afar, making the night even darker and more silent. The small pellet house was quite a distance away from the house. Chu Mu walked at a normal speed, and it would take him about half an hour to get there. For some reason, Chu Mu slowed down his walking speed, as if he was admiring the boundless night. Who knew what was there to admire in this pitch-black night with only a trace of hazy moonlight? Not to mention, he was alone, without a beauty to accompany him. Unknowingly, a dark cloud silently floated across the sky, covering the hazy moonlight. Suddenly, the world fell into a pitch-black darkness, and it was difficult to see one's own fingers. Chu Mu raised his foot and took a step forward. Before his foot even touched the ground, he suddenly paused and tilted his head back slightly. At the same time, a pitch-black sword light seemed to blend in with the night sky as it streaked across his eyes. It was almost right in front of his eyes, causing Chu Mu to feel a sliver of pain in his eyes. A hair's breadth away, just a hair's breadth away, and this black sword light would have pierced his temple, destroyed his brain, and killed him. Even though the sword light blended into the night, Chu Mu could still see a trace of it. After missing, the sword light disappeared. There was no attack, but Chu Mu knew that the attacker was still lurking around. His speed was extremely fast. After missing, he would immediately run away, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. This was a very good assassin. Without thinking, Chu Mu knew that this assassin must have been hired by Yuan Wutian. His purpose was to deal with him, and it would be best if he could kill him. Carefully sensing his surroundings, Chu Mu was surprised to find that with his amazing perception, he could not sense the assassin's lurking. He spread out his tyrannical mind power, covering an area of 2,000 meters in an instant, but still could not find him. The effect of strengthening the mind power and increasing the activity of the mind power was reflected on another level. Chu Mu's mind power spread out like ripples, covering an area of 2,000 meters. He immediately felt that on his right, about 150 meters away, there was a figure lurking. The figure was not breathing, and even the heartbeat was extremely low. All the aura was restrained. No wonder he could not sense it before. An expert, a very frightening assassin. His cultivation must have reached the origin realm. The opponent did not sense Chu Mu's mind power. Unless his mind power was close to Chu Mu's, it would be difficult to sense him. What he did not know was that at this moment, his entire state was clearly seen by Chu Mu's mind power, including the very thin and sharp black dagger in his hand. 150 meters was not long, but the opponent's speed was extremely fast, and his explosive power was also very strong. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to retreat 150 meters away the moment his sword missed. Chu Mu believed that with his current cultivation, he would not be able to achieve such speed. In other words, as long as he chased after him, the assassin would realize that he was no match for him and would immediately retreat at the fastest speed possible. This was not what Chu Mu wanted. On the surface, Chu Mu seemed to be a very calm person, but in reality, he was a decisive killer. He would never show mercy to those who were hostile to him. This assassin had already made a move to kill him. There could only be one ending, and that was death. No matter how strong he was, where he came from, or who he was backed by, nothing could stop Chu Mu's determination to kill him. Chu Mu first maintained a high level of vigilance. He knew that the assassin had been watching his every move. After 15 minutes, Chu Mu let out a sigh of relief. However, he still maintained his vigilance and continued to move forward. If there was no flaw, then he had to create one. Moreover, it had to be very natural, so that the assassin would think that Chu Mu had inadvertently revealed a flaw. Chu Mu walked very slowly, as if to tell the assassin that he knew that he was lurking around, so he maintained a high level of vigilance to prevent being attacked. This assassin was very patient and did not make a move. Even if Chu Mu's footsteps were slow, he still unknowingly approached the house. The assassin was still secretly following him, maintaining a distance of 150 meters from Chu Mu, waiting for the best opportunity to make a move. The dark clouds still covered the moonlight and the world was still dark. However, in front of him, there was a little light. It was the light of a flame. Under the torch there was a beautiful figure. "Master Chu, is that you?" A gentle voice came with the night wind. It was Nalan Fenghua's voice. Chu Mu was slightly startled. He did not expect that Nalan Fenghua would actually come out of the house to wait for him at the door in the middle of the night. For a moment, Chu Mu's heart gave birth to a strange feeling. It was something that he had never felt before, and he could not explain it clearly. The assassin lurking in the darkness moved. His figure blended into the darkness like a ghost, silently crossing 150 meters. The sharp and thin black short sword pierced out, splitting the darkness of the night. It swept towards Chu Mu's back, aiming directly at his heart. The sword chi, sword intent, and dark profound power on the short sword instantly exploded, forming a horrifying strangulation, covering half a meter around the short sword. Even the dust was shattered once again. Chu Mu's figure instantly shattered and disappeared. The assassin's eyes widened, and he immediately realized that something was wrong. At the same time, he reacted at full speed, exploding in an instant. His whole body flew to the side at an unbelievable speed. In just 1,000th of a second, he would be able to leave this place and hide again. "Since you are here, then stay." A light sigh seemed to be heard right next to the assassin's ear, making his hair stand on end. A cold current rushed up from the bottom of his feet, along his spine and into his brain. No matter how much he thought about it, he would never have thought that the flaw in that split second was also a trap. Most importantly, he did not expect that his target's strength would be so horrifying. If he missed this chance, he would lose his life. The assassin also knew that he had no chance to escape. Therefore, he decided to fight back. A terrifying sword pressure burst out, and the dark profound made the surroundings even darker. The short sword in the assassin's hand also exploded in an instant, turning into thousands of black lights that circled around and shot out in all directions. Everything was covered by the black lights. He believed that, under this mutual destruction attack, Chu Mu would be severely wounded or even killed. At the last moment, the assassin did not give up hope. He still wanted to escape. However, a wave of pain came from his heart. He knew that his heart had been crushed, just like how he had crushed other people's hearts in the past. Chapter 770. In the hall, the bright light pearl emitted a white light, illuminating the hall as if it was daytime. Chu Mu and Nalan Fenghua were in the hall. The maid Xiao Huan was rubbing her eyes, and the housekeeper Nalan he was also there. There was also a corpse. The corpse was dressed in a black suit, made of very exquisite material and expensive. His face was covered, and there was a wound where his heart was, but no blood was flowing out. Worry flashed in Nalan Fenghua's eyes from time to time. Nalan he squatted down and removed the black cloth on the assassin's face, revealing a pale face. It was not only because of the loss of blood, but also because it had been very pale before. Perhaps it was because he had been moving in the dark for a long time and had not been exposed to sunlight. The assassin looked to be in his 30s, but his actual age was unclear. His eyes were long and narrow, giving off a dark and evil feeling. However, no one recognized him. Nalan he put on gloves and searched the assassin's clothes, but did not find anything. In the end, he took the space bracelet and handed it to Chu Mu. Space rings were not considered precious in the ancient world, but in the Heaven Wasteland domain, they were extremely rare treasures. The spatial bracelet was ownerless, so Chu Mu's mental remembrance easily seeped into it. There weren't many things, just a few pills and 2 short swords. They were identical to the short swords the killer used, so they were probably backup swords. Other than that, there was also a token. Chu Mu took out the token and looked at it carefully. The token was blood red, and the back was the shape of a building. On the front there was an ancient word, thorn. The word thorn was golden and very conspicuous. Under the golden word, there was a small word, 13. Nalan Fenghua, Xiao Huan, and Chu Mu did not know. They could only guess that it was some organization. Nalan He's expression changed greatly, and his face became gloomy. Uncle He, do you know the identity of this assassin? Nalan Fenghua immediately asked. An assassin from the Bloodthorn Tower. Nalan He's tone was very serious, and the corners of his eyes trembled, showing that he was extremely afraid of the Bloodthorn Tower. Bloodthorn Tower? Chu Mu was not from the Heaven Wasteland domain, and did not know much about it. Nalan Fenghua and Xiao Huan were too weak, and did not know much about it. Blood-Piercing Tower is a top-notch assassin organization. Their assassins are all trained internally. According to their ranks, they are divided into gold, silver, copper, and iron. Gold is the highest, and iron is the lowest. Each rank of assassin is further divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Their strength is also ranked from high to low. Nalan he said slowly, this assassin is golden number 13. His strength has at least reached the origin realm. Deshang is strong enough to assassinate a complete origin realm swordsman. As he spoke, Nalan he looked at Chu Mu with admiration and respect. This assassin could assassinate an ordinary swordsman at the complete origin realm, but he had died under Chu Mu's sword. Didn't this mean that Chu Mu's strength was stronger than an ordinary swordsman at the complete origin realm? It was hard to imagine what kind of great power could nurture a genius like Chu Mu. Fortunately, the assassin is dead. Nalan Fenghua said with some lingering fear. It's not that simple. Bloodthorn Tower has a rule. They will assassinate the same target 3 times. This is the so-called triple kill rule. If the first assassination is successful, then nothing will happen. If it fails, then they will try a second and third assassination. If they fail all 3 times, then they will give up. Nalan he said in an incomparably dignified manner. In other words, Grandmaster Chu, you will have to face 2 more assassination attempts from Bloodthorn Tower. Moreover, because of the failure of this assassination attempt, the next assassin will be even stronger. I estimate that it will be an assassin before the 10th. When Nalan he said this, Xiao Huan was dumbfounded. Nalan Fenghua was anxious. On the other hand, Chu Mu was not worried at all. It's fine, he said indifferently. I don't have any good plans right now. Even if Grandmaster Chu leaves the border city, the assassins of the Bloodthorn Tower will still find him. Moreover, the strength of the Bloodthorn Tower is extremely powerful. I reckon that the Heavenly Dan building is far from being comparable to them. Therefore, we can only rely on Grandmaster Chu. Nalan he sighed. One method was to take the initiative and find Bloodthorn Tower's location. Then, he could kill all of their assassins. Naturally, he would be able to avoid future troubles. However, that would require great strength and intelligence. Bloodthorn Tower was able to train so many powerful assassins. They must have even more powerful existences. They might even have experts on the level of the sword of Gojoseon. Moreover, Bloodthorn Tower was very mysterious. Apart from their members, no one else knew where they were. The remaining method was just as Nalan he said. Wait until Bloodthorn Tower's assassins came again. Chu Mu would have to rely on his own strength to deal with them. The worst result would be being killed by the assassins. Of course, Chu Mu was very confident in himself. He still had some tricks up his sleeve. Therefore, Chu Mu wasn't worried at all. The first assassination failed. The second one won't come so soon. Take advantage of this time. I suggest that Master Chu temporarily stop refining pills and make more preparations. Nalan he said. It must be that trash Yuan Wutian. Xiao Huan said angrily. Besides him, Heavenly Pill Building is also a suspect. Nalan Fenghua said. Yuan Wutian's probability is the highest. Chu Mu said, go and rest. We'll deal with it when the time comes. After saying that, Chu Mu put away the assassin's corpse. He turned around and walked out of the hall, returning to his room. Nalan Fenghua and the others returned anxiously. The hall was empty. Even the bright light bead had been taken away. Yuan Wutian, I pray that you have already left Desolate City. Chu Mu secretly said. He left the room and blended into the night. From the time Yuan Wutian came to the small pill building to the time when Bloodthorn Tower's assassins came to assassinate him, there were 3 days. During these 3 days, Yuan Wutian could still be in Desolate City, waiting for the result of the assassination. Of course, he could also have left. Chu Mu's mind spread out and condensed into a beam that directly spread out to a length of 20,000 meters. Under his control, this beam of mind swept across. Everything within 20,000 meters was immediately perceived by him. It was very clear. If the 6 mind stars were not sealed, Chu Mu could use even more terrifying mind power. The range of coverage would also be larger, and the efficiency of searching would be several times higher. Fortunately, Desolate Border City was only a low-rank city, and its area wasn't especially large. With a distance of 20,000 meters, it was extremely fast to quickly sweep through the entire city. Adding on Chu Mu's extremely fast movement technique, it didn't take long for him to search through Desolate Border City. As he searched quickly, he thought. Judging from Yuan Wutian's habits, if he was still in Desolate City, it was very likely that he was staying in a better restaurant or inn in Desolate City. Of course, this did not rule out special circumstances. Therefore, on the way to the center of Desolate City, Chu Mu's mind power did not stop. In the entire Desolate City, there was no one whose strength could be compared with Chu Mu's. Therefore, no one could sense Chu Mu's mind power. When he arrived at the center of Desolate City, Chu Mu's mind power swept across, and a trace of a smile appeared in his eyes. Why haven't the assassins of Bloodthorn Tower arrived yet? Yuan Wutian was pacing back and forth in the most luxurious room of the most luxurious restaurant in Desolate City. He was somewhat anxious. Chu Mu's terror had left a deep impression on him, and he, who had never suffered losses, was not willing to leave with his tail between his legs. Therefore, he had paid a high price to hire the gold medal assassins of Bloodthorn Tower. His 4 sword guards and servants, as well as the old man, who had recovered from his injuries, were all present. "They're already here." A faint voice sounded, as if answering Yuan Wutian's question. Then, the sound of wind breaking was heard, and something flew in through the window. The old man's figure moved, and he swept out his palm, hitting the thing immediately. It fell to the side, and it was a corpse in black clothes, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. "Not good, young master, leave quickly." The old man's complexion changed greatly, and he quickly shouted, standing in front of Yuan Wutian. The 4 sword guards immediately moved to protect Yuan Wutian and leave this place. Yuan Wutian was not stupid. He reacted quickly and was about to leave when a sword light flew in from outside the window. Immediately, everyone in the room felt that they could not avoid it, as if the sword was aimed at them. They were extremely frightened, and there was no way to avoid it. The shadow of death shrouded their hearts. This sword seemed to have come from the sky, with the intention to kill. Vaguely, everyone saw a sword light piercing towards them. It seemed to be moving very slowly, but they could not react in time, let alone dodge or block it. They could only watch the sword light approach them. The old man in the initial origin realm roared, and the sword in his hand slashed out with all his strength. This sword attack contained all of his strength. Unfortunately, he did not know how to control his strength, otherwise, the power of this sword attack would have been even more powerful. However, even if he knew how to control his strength, it was useless. His strength was too weak compared to Chu Mu's. In an instant, the sword light shattered, and Chu Mu's sword light pierced the old man's throat. His tyrannical spiritual consciousness was integrated into the sword light, destroying his spiritual world. Then, the spiritual world of the 4 sword guards and the servant was also destroyed by Chu Mu's tyrannical spiritual consciousness. In the end, only Yuan Wutian was left. "Do you have any last words?" Chu Mu landed in front of Yuan Wutian and said lightly. Don't kill me." Yuan Wutian was scared out of his wits. He collapsed on the ground and his pants were wet. He looked extremely terrified as he begged. "Tell me about the strength of the Yuan family," Chu Mu said lightly. Yuan Wutian told everything he knew about the Yuan family. After he finished, he begged Chu Mu not to kill him. "Don't kill me. I swear, from now on, I will never go against you again. I will not cause you any trouble, and I will not marry Nalan Fenghua as my concubine." Yuan Wutian made his final promise. "Your promise is indeed very sincere, but I believe in dead people more," Chu Mu said. Yuan Wutian was in disbelief and despair. Chu Mu beheaded him. Chapter 771. The corpse in the room had completely disappeared, and not even a drop of blood was left behind. The battle was too fast, and it was a one-sided slaughter. Therefore, it didn't cause any damage to the surroundings. It looked no different from before the battle. Even if an expert in the field of investigation came, it wouldn't be easy to reconstruct the battle. Thus, to a certain extent, the Yuan family's search was stopped, and some troubles were avoided. What was even more tragic was that Yuan Wutian had contacted the assassins of the blood-piercing tower on his own accord. Apart from him and his entourage, no one related to the Yuan family knew about it. Furthermore, the blood-piercing tower wouldn't provide any information to the Yuan family. This led to the Yuan family's frantic search after learning of Yuan Wutian's death, but to no avail. Only by chance did they learn of the killer's name, but that was already a year later. Apart from Chu Mu himself, no one else knew of Yuan Wutian's death. He quickly left, leaving no trace behind. Returning to his room, he began his cultivation and breaking through the god-sealing blood curse. The next day, Chu Mu went to the small pellet pavilion as usual. He had already made all the necessary preparations. Refining pills once again, the following days were peaceful. As for the Yuan family, they wouldn't find out about Yuan Wutian's death so quickly, because Yuan Wuqian often went out to play for half a month. Moreover, the Yuan family knew that he had come to a low-grade city this time, so there shouldn't be anyone here who could threaten him. The business of the small pellet pavilion was still booming. Chu Mu continued to refine pills during the day and returned to the courtyard at night. However, in order to make things easier for the assassins of the blood-piercing tower, he left the small pellet pavilion late at night to avoid unnecessary casualties. Understanding Chu Mu's intentions, although Nalan Fenghua and the others were worried, they didn't hold him back. The first few days were peaceful, but on the fifth night, Chu Mu was suddenly ambushed on his way back to the courtyard. It was the same dark sword light, and it was also an attack that blended into the darkness. However, it was much faster and fiercer than the previous Golden 13 assassin. Moreover, this assassin's speed was much faster, and his movements were much more flexible and strange. He immediately retreated after his attack failed, but he didn't hide immediately. Instead, he used a long-range attack. The thin sword blended into the darkness of the night and shot through the air like a hidden weapon. It was extremely dangerous. The strength of this assassin was obviously more tyrannical than the previous Golden number 13. He was at least twice as strong, and his methods were also more unpredictable. He did indeed bring a little trouble to Chu Mu. Darkness was extremely beneficial to the assassins of the Bloodthorn Tower. Not only could it help them hide better, but it could also increase their strength, allowing them to unleash the full power of their darkness profound. After tangling with this assassin for a while, Chu Mu discovered that this assassin was determined to not give up until he killed him. Even if he escaped, it was to prepare for the next attack. Sometimes he even didn't hesitate to injure himself. His purpose was to exchange injury for life. However, this assassin's strength was still inferior to Chu Mu's. After a probing exchange, Chu Mu finished off the assassin with a single sword strike. Like before, the assassin's heart was pierced, and his heart was crushed. There wasn't anything good in this assassin's spatial bracelet. There was only a token of the Bloodthorn Tower with the word 7 below it. In other words, this assassin was ranked 7th among the Bloodthorn Tower's gold-ranked assassins. 2 gold-ranked assassins had died in a row. Moreover, they were top-level assassins. This was a huge loss for the Bloodthorn Tower. One must know that their assassins were trained from childhood. It wasn't easy to train them to become gold-ranked assassins. Chu Mu didn't tell Nalan Fenghua and the others about the 7th gold-ranked assassin's ambush. Nalan Fenghua and the others saw that Chu Mu was safe and sound every day, so they didn't ask. In their hearts, they hoped that the Bloodthorn Tower's assassins would never come. Chu Mu continued to refine a large amount of pills every day. He would sell some of them and store some of them. Currently, the little pill house's stock of pills had reached an astonishing number. Time passed. 10 days had passed since the 7th gold-ranked assassin's death. "Miss, when I opened the shop this morning, I saw this thing on the door." Nalan Fenghua and Chu Mu arrived at the little pill house early in the morning. The shop assistant immediately came over with a red card and handed it to Nalan Fenghua. Nalan he was wearing gloves that had a certain degree of anti-poison effect. When he opened the red card, he was startled. Then his expression changed. He handed the card to Chu Mu. Chu Mu took a look. There were 2 swords drawn on the card, one bright and one dark. It seemed to be a projection of the sword. Below the 2 swords were 2 words, Gold One. In addition, there were 2 hours left. Gold One is an assassin from the Bloodthorn Tower, right? Chu Mu closed the card and asked casually. He's an assassin from the Bloodthorn Tower. He's also the most powerful gold-ranked assassin in the Bloodthorn Tower. Nalan he was experienced and knowledgeable. He also knew a lot about the Bloodthorn Tower. His expression was solemn as he said frankly, "It's rumored that Gold One is the most special assassin in the Bloodthorn Tower. Not only is his strength extremely tyrannical, but it's also because before he makes a move, he'll give his target a card. The card has his unique symbol, one bright and one dark, 2 swords, gold one, and the time of the assassination. As he spoke, he walked into the little pill house. That's quite special, Chumu said. Sending a card and specifying the time of the assassination almost turned into an open kill. Gold 1 sends out a card to give the target enough time to prepare. Once, there was a target who had reached the peak of the origin realm. After receiving the card, he spent a lot of money to hire more than 10 origin realm experts. It said that 2 of them had reached the peak of the origin realm to protect him. In the end, when the time came, Gold 1 attacked and killed the target. The experts who were hired to protect the target were all killed on the spot. Not a single one survived. Nalan, he said with a tone of fear. Chumu was a little surprised. Gold 1 was indeed very powerful, but he was also very arrogant. The reason why assassins were assassins was because they were good at assassination. When an assassin exposed himself, it was no longer an assassination, but an open kill. Such an assassin, no matter how powerful he was, would sooner or later kick an iron plate. Of course, anyone could kick an iron plate one day. However, those who were too arrogant usually did not have a good ending. Gold 1 was very high profile before he attacked. So far, he has attacked 99 times and has never failed. Therefore, the card he sent out is called the Absolute Kill card. It means that once the card is sent out, it will definitely kill the target. Nalan, he said in a very serious tone. His eyes were filled with unprecedented worry. This time, I'm afraid he will fail, Chumu said with a smile. The price of failure was obvious, and that was death. Compared to the other people's worries, Chumu did not care at all. He put away the card and went into the alchemy room to refine pills without any pressure. Nalan, Fenghua and the others were thinking about how to help Chumu. No matter how they thought about it, they still could not find an answer. Gold 1 was too powerful. Even with several complete Origin Realm warriors, they still could not protect the target. Unless they could invite someone stronger than the Origin Realm. However, it was impossible for them to do so. In Gold 1's Absolute Kill card, the time set was 3 days later at midnight. No matter where Chumu was, Gold 1 would find him and kill Chumu. For some reason, the news of Chumu receiving Gold 1's Absolute Kill card was known by the people of the Heavenly Pill Building. That's great. Yen Lai, the owner of the Heavenly Pill Building, suddenly clapped his hands. He felt happy from the bottom of his heart. The small elixir house occupied most of the low-end pill market in Border City, causing the daily profits of the Heavenly Pill Building to decrease significantly. Although this was the inevitable result of the alchemy competition, the people of the Heavenly Pill Building were very unwilling. If it weren't for Chumu's tyrannical strength, the Heavenly Pill Building would have already used all kinds of methods to suppress the small elixir house. Everything was because of Chumu, a terrifying warrior, keeping watch. If Chumu died, the small elixir house would lose its support. At that time, the Heavenly Pill Building would have the final say in how they wanted to need it. The owner of the Heavenly Pill Building wanted to express his deepest gratitude to the person who asked the Bloodthorn Tower to deal with Chumu. Gold 1's Absolute Kill card. Chumu, this time, no matter how strong you are, only death awaits you, Yen Lai muttered to himself. His eyes were shining. He seemed to have already seen Chumu's death. Under the suppression of the Heavenly Pill Building, the small elixir house would fall apart and eventually perish. The Heavenly Pill Building would once again occupy the pill market in Border City. While he was happy, Yen Lai was also shocked by Chumu's strength. To be able to make the Bloodthorn Tower's Gold 1 move, it meant that Chumu's strength must be very strong. He estimated that he was much stronger than the average complete Origin Realm expert. He secretly rejoiced that the Heavenly Pill Building did not make the wrong decision. Otherwise, provoking an existence stronger than the average complete Origin Realm swordsman would be a terrifying thing. Everything would be known in 3 days. If Gold 1 killed Chumu, then everything would go according to his plan. If Gold One did not kill Chu Mu, then he would report it to the Heavenly Pill Building's headquarters. From then on, Chu Mu would be listed as one of the people that could never be provoked. Furthermore, he would not be able to touch the small elixir house. An existence at the level of Gold One was still unknown to ordinary people. Therefore, the border city was relatively quiet. Soon, one day passed and everything was peaceful. Then, the second day passed and the third day arrived. On this day, Naylan Fenghua and the others began to become very nervous. They were restless, as if they were the ones who were going to be assassinated. On the contrary, Chu Mu's face was calm. He did not take it to heart at all. If it were not for Naylan Fenghua and the others being nervous, he would have forgotten about Gold One's absolute kill card.